with another team. Like that's the example. So I was like, well, yeah, was he doing it on purpose? Was that him actually in a clever way saying, yeah, Dak, we believe Dak's a Super Bowl quarterback, just may not be with us. Remember, of the example, a lot of great all-time great quarterbacks end up being great elsewhere and having to, move locations for whatever reason. We're seeing that more and more. Matthew Stafford is an example of that, no doubt. I do wonder. That's interesting that he gave the Matthew Stafford example. Had to go to the Rams. He traded to the Rams before he had that Super Bowl success. I think to myself, was that a Freudian slip or was that intentional? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you also have to. That's a team that I don't know went all in.
Also went all in. Great point. Yes, that was part of the all in.
There's a lot of comparisons to that team that did not make sense in the analogy where you're like, you can say that, but also he didn't win until he left. He was in a toxic area that couldn't win games until he went. Also, the throwing in the 12 games thing, that's the worst part of that, where he goes, they couldn't even win 12 games. And you're like, Steven, if you have not gotten over the fact that your fan base doesn't care about this anymore, you have made 12 games seem meaningless.
Yeah.
So you're already at this point, but yeah, you can't compare it to no. Remember when they went all in and traded all these guys and made this big move to try because they thought they were close? Well, we're the opposite of that.
That's basically kind of how
I hate to tell you
how it came across to me.
In this analogy, you're the Lions.
Yes, exactly. He's like, well, look, what do you exactly? I don't understand why that was the example he gave. Maybe that was the only one he could think of, but that's a great way of putting it. Yeah, like, dude, don't you realize you're the Lions here? But I said maybe he did. Maybe that's what he's saying. But a lot of stuff we've talked about, even yesterday, we brought up that was the beauty of what the Rams did, right? The Rams had Jared Goff, who was Jared Goff's accomplished more in the playoffs than Dak has.
Yeah,
Jared Goff's been to a Super Bowl. He's won playoff games for multiple teams, and yet Sean McVay looked at him and went, "Dude, you're not good enough. I do. We've taken it as far as we can go. I got to go upgrade and go get me another guy. I got to go get a dude. I got to go get a dog." And hell, I think now Jared Goff has proven, hey, I got that dog in me too. All right, I'm a dude. And with Detroit, obviously different, got different environment, different culture. He's thriving there. It's just interesting. And just like I said, you could have upgraded over Dak at one point if you thought, okay, he's hit his ceiling. And I'm not saying he has, because last year was his best year that we've ever seen from Dak. But yeah, like I said, last year, like I brought this up last show about the Cowboys. There's several teams around the NFL, and I don't think they study the league. I really don't. I don't think they study trends in the league. That's why I think they miscalculate certain positions, and then they wait too late in trying to re-sign, extend guys. I think you should have somebody on your staff who literally is kind of studying trends in the league, whether that be schemes or whether that be front office, like what front office philosophy, talent acquisition for like roster construction. People are just kind of studying the trends of the league, so you can first of all find great ways to combat them, or you can stay ahead of them and almost predict where they're going to go. I don't think the Cowboys do that. I really don't. I'm pretty, after studying the Cowboys for 15 years, I'm pretty sure they don't. They have their philosophical, kind of ideology, things they believe in as an organization, and some of them are good, and some of them are flawed, like all types of different types of methods. And I do think the Cowboys, though, they need to be more progressive and proactive. They're so reactive. And this is basically what's why they're here, having to sign all these big three within, I don't know, the calendar year. They're gonna have to sign all of them because they're so reactive as an organization.
Yeah, I mean, it's we played that clip a minute ago of him saying basically the benefits of being in Dallas, and you go, that's great, that's awesome, and that really works when you're talking to free agents, and that really works when you're talking to guys that aren't top players. So if you're saying to, your third string or your, number 3 in the depth chart DB, and you're trying to sign somebody, that's a big difference, because that contract, the difference of you can make $10 million there or $10 million here, and the $10 million here is going to go a lot further, and we're going to be able to get you on more ads, and you'll be a part of the Cowboys. That's a big sell. If you're CeeDee Lamb or Dak Prescott, they just sit there and go, yeah, okay, this is the number. I don't care about anything else. Nothing else matters. this is the number because this is the precedent. This is what it is. And if you're not willing to match that number, I'd rather go somewhere else where I'm respected, because at a certain point, it's more about respect than the actual dollar sign, because now the money's not necessarily the deciding factor. The deciding factor is, do you want to show me the respect, or do you want to sit here and squabble over a couple $1 million? Because for you, you have to win the negotiation. For me, I want to have this. I want to be able to say that I'm the best. And for me to do that is go in and do it. And I get, we all wish you could have the guy, Patrick Mahomes, who says he's not underpaid, and he can go on and, wants to give the team friendly deal. You all want that. It's extremely, extremely rare. And you can't always hope for that, because it happens maybe once a generation.
Hope is not a strategy.
Yeah. And so you've already missed out on this generation. So the next guy is going to come out in, the 2035 draft. The next guy will take a pay cut. So you've already missed out on this. Patrick Mahomes, that guy.
No, your Tim Duncans of the world, your Tom Brady's of the world, who are like, nah, actually winning matters more than getting paid.
It happens once every 15, 20 years. And Patrick Mahomes just did it. So, and
it's like once every, you're right. It doesn't have Jalen Brunson, right? He just had one of those, right? Yeah. He just, I think, passed up $100-something extra $1 million or something like that. So the Knicks would have more money to build the team. Yeah, those guys don't come around very often. And by the way, I'm not judging either way. I think it's great that those guys decide, hey, I prioritize something over money. Money should not guide any and every decision. But hey, it's pretty important.
Yes.
And it's, like you say, it's a status symbol also for these guys. They've been building this we talk about the Olympics and how dedicated these folks are to going to, compete in the Olympics. They dedicate their whole entire lives to, perfecting a sport and cultivating a craft and a skill. And every 4 years they get a chance to compete for the Olympics. And, you want to make sure that, hey, when you get there, that you're given your just due, because you devoted your life to it. I mean, same thing with these guys. They devote their life to it, and that's considered one of their all-time achievements or goals, is to be highest paid player of the position. And it says that you are the best at your position. So I understand. I think that all the big three all want that. From what I can gather, Stephen Jones has implied several times that they all want top. He did it in these interviews too. They want top of the market money.
Yeah,
each of them.
The more and more, and in this he mentioned it too. I think they all want cash and they don't want to pay it. I think at the end of the day, either they don't have the liquid cash available that they feel they can spend, which they can get it. No, and look, I get it, but if you say, do they have, as a Cowboys organization, $250 million?
Yes. Adam Schefter even talked about it.
That they're willing to spend.
He's like, don't let these dudes let you think they're cash poor all of a sudden.
But if they are,
the Cowboys will generate more revenue than any other team in the league. All of a sudden, don't have it. I know you're talking about assets. They have enough cash.
What I'm saying is, I think they do. I'm saying, are they willing to spend it? If you're not, fine, rebuild the team. But these are not complicated. This is not I'm going to win this. If you're going to do it, then do it. Or if you're not, then don't. But this waiting around thing and the whole waiting and the Jerry Jones old school method of deadlines make deals. I don't know if these players care enough. I don't know if any of these players care enough to say, no, I'm willing to go out in week 1, put my body on the line for a franchise that refuses to do what every other franchise in the league would do for me.
I assume Dak is, but once he actually goes out there and takes a snap on the last year of his deal, something tells me something's going to flip.
Yeah,
so going to flip in his mind that exactly. I'm moving on. This season is so I can. Is me auditioning for my other team, whoever wants me. And you don't ever want it to get to that. Well, because there are some people that will probably advise him, dude, don't go out there. You don't. You don't need to go out there at all until they give you a new deal. But Dak's at camp, so the assumption is he'll go out there. But I think if he does indeed take a starting snap on the last year of his deal in a regular season game, I think you could cross the Rubicon. You can get the point of no return in that negotiation, and you don't want to do that. And the CeeDee Lamb thing too, I'm with you. I think at one point you get him to the point where he is so upset, feels disrespected, as you mentioned, and he requests a trade. That could be bad too. Or maybe the Cowboys want this thing to get to a doomsday scenario. I'm with you. I have no idea what's holding it up. I know they want a lot of guaranteed money, and I know Jerry's and Steven are trying to decrease that percentage, whatever it is. So I guarantee these guys probably want. I told you guys yesterday, the signing bonus for Justin Jefferson was like an 80-something million dollar signing bonus.
Yeah.
Hell, the signing bonus for Jordan Love was 75 million. Guys, that's up front. That's cash right now. And if you got 3 players that want that kind of money, 70, 80 million dollars in signing bonus alone. I'm not even talking about the guarantees in the contract. I'm talking about just the money you have to have on the spot when I sign the deal. You have to give that money to me. I would love to see it in cash, but I know they just transferred it to your accounts. But you get my point. You got to have that. They're going to have that money. They have it. As do they want to spend it? And they've never wanted to spend cash. The Cowboys are, and I gave you numbers yesterday, last 3 years are 30th in cash spending. The 3 years before that, they were 32nd in cash spending. And the 3 years before that, they were 25th in cash spending. They don't spend a lot of cash. They just don't. That's not how they operate. They don't. But these guys want cash. So that's holding it up too. So we'll see where it gets to. But that's the end. Stevie Jones also brought up, and this is for Dak. He brought up that no quarterback seems to, or at least no team wants to cross the $55 million mark. He brought that up several times. He said they've negotiated and they've structured the contracts differently, guarantees and things of that nature. He said, but we've gotten now 2 quarterbacks that have signed and they don't want to go past that $55 million. So he brought that up several times too. Essentially implying that they may be trying to get Dax, somewhere around 55 million or like maybe right above it at 56. That's 55.5 million, whatever it may be, just a notch to get him the highest paid. Because he mentioned that he was like, remember, it used to be once precedent was set, every quarterback would get more. He didn't mention Deshaun Watson's contract, but I digress. And then he said, but nobody lately has wanted to cross 55 million. And I wonder, do the Cowboys barely want to cross it, or do they?
I like
Louis Riddick and Adam Schefter say they're going north of 60
the
million.
following question is: so you think Dak's the same as Tua and
Trevor Lawrence
and like that's what you think? Because if you say that, then if that's the case, you should probably move on. If you think they're that, and he's already 30 years old, and if he's reached his peak, and you think that his best is the game manager, you maybe shouldn't pay him that.
Yeah, because those other guys are younger. Yeah, that's fair. No, you're right. That's what I'm saying.
But if you think he's better than that, then he deserves more money than that, right?
Oh yeah, but just a little bit. Just a hair more.
Just a hair more.
50, was it 55.6, 55.3? Like I said, they said he was getting north of 60. That's very different than a little over 55. So
we've thought the number always around 60 the whole time.
That's what's basically been reported for almost 3 or 4 months now. Like everybody said 60, around 60. That number's coming from somewhere. I assume it's coming from Dak's people now.
Yeah.
And not the Cowboys.
Cowboys coming out and they'll be like, hey, man, we're going to start paying hourly.
Dak might go, yeah, my hourly rate is pretty high. You don't even want to see that. But yeah, there you go. So that's an update on the Cowboys. All right, we come back. We'll go behind the burn orange curtain. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian a little bit and talk about the coordinators' media availability today. They're only available twice to the media at the beginning of the season, prior to training camp, and then at the end of the season. So we'll talk about what questions we'd have for the coordinators for the Longhorns. We'll get into that and talk some Texas football on the other side right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get some Texas football conversation. As I mentioned, the coordinators will be available today. So that's going to be interesting. We'll have some audio tomorrow, probably, of the coordinators' availability. But they are only available for Sark twice a year. I believe they're available at the end of the year, at the beginning. Every head coach has a different philosophy about it. Sometimes it's just to protect the coordinator so they ain't got to worry about meeting with the media and answering questions with the media. So you just have one message coming out. You don't have different, messages to the media that are out there. Sometimes it's about time management. I talked to Coach Bob Shipley about this. He was like, yeah, sometimes the recruiting, you got recruits there. And you, as a head coach, you have to be there for the post game media availability. But the coordinators don't have to. And you need somebody to represent, and not just the position coaches, to represent the team and the program when in the recruiting, and the coordinators, they go down there and they help recruit and talk to the recruits and that kind of stuff. So it could be a number of different factors as to why you don't have access to the coordinators. But I will say that for Sark's very open and forthcoming. Matter of fact, we'll hear from Sark, so it's not really a big deal. You still get plenty of information from Sark, something that I think is pretty cool. But I was thinking about the coordinators and what I would ask them. We were talking about this when SEC Media Days was going down, and what we would ask Sark and the questions that we would have for him. The question I'd have for PK would be pretty much about the influence of Johnny Nansen. How much of Johnny Nansen's playbook, how much of Johnny Nansen's philosophy, him now, because he is I think co-DC is the title, how much of that is going to influence PK's defense? I think it will. I think you've seen that with when they brought in Gary Patterson. Gary Patterson had an influence on PK. Why wouldn't he? He's very well respected. And PK knew the ecosystem of the Big 12 really well. So they started playing a lot of pattern match cover 4, which is a Gary Patterson signature in the conference. So Gary Patterson had an influence on Payam Sadat when he came in as a special assistant for Texas. I think there's probably been some influence there as well. But I think Johnny Nansen, because he had a really unique defense in Arizona, had a lot of experience playing the best quarterbacks in the country the last couple of years with Penix and Caleb Williams. I mean, you're talking about some of the best QBs in college football. And he had great game plans going up against those guys, and really exotic game plans, matchup-based game plans that really changed week to week, looked really different week to week. And so I wonder if Texas this year will look more exotic. My guess is yes. The two things that Arizona did, they had more exotic looks week to week. And with PK, he's pretty static. His looks don't change that often. So it'll be obvious, and I think it'll be easy to recognize if there's some more exotic looks out there in PK's defense, because you just don't see it a lot. And Arizona ran a lot of single high safety. Middle field closed is what they call it, single high safeties, which means they ran a lot of cover 3, cover 1, more so than any team arguably in the Power 5. In Texas, I think you'll start seeing more single high safety looks, just the influence of Johnny Nansen there. I think you'll get some of that too. So I would ask him about the Nansen influence. The pass defense, I mean, I think that goes without saying. How's the pass defense going to improve? That's probably the other one. And what's your rotation at the defensive end spot? How does that work? What's the thought process? Do you have a game plan for it now? Do you see the guys in training camp? Because you're deep there. You got Ethan Burke, you got Barron Sorrell, you got Trey Moore, you got Colton Vosick, you got Colin Simmons. I don't want to disrespect Justice Finkley. I mean, you got 6 guys in that room, and I wonder what the rotation is going to look like. That'd probably be my 3 questions for him. Jeff Banks. I mean, Jeff Banks is who's the returners? I mean, is it going to be is it as simple as it looks? Silas Bowden and Matthew Golden, your punt returner and your kick returner. They had the most impressive numbers. They're the most prolific, but their sample sizes were very small. Matthew Golden only had 9 kickoff returns last year. Silas Bowden had 3 punt returns last year. Both of those guys. I think Matthew Golden had 2 for touchdowns. And Silas Bowden had 1 for a touchdown out of the 3 punt returns. So it seems pretty obvious that Matthew Golden and Silas Bowden are going to be kickoff returners, but is it a competition? I'm sure he's going to say yeah, but I wonder if he will imply that those guys are easily the front runners to win those jobs. So that's kind of the question. He also congratulations will be in order because he just got married. So I'll probably ask him, where he take his honeymoon. I don't know if he revealed it, but I'd ask him where him and his lovely wife went to honeymoon. That'd be pretty good. And for Kyle Flood, I'd probably ask him about the 6-0 line package. The Big 11, Big 12 package. How much more are we going to see it with Malik Agbo? And who's going to be your jumbo package guys? The now, my man CB brought that up on the on Texas Football live stream. Yeah, I don't know who the jumbo package guy is going to be. Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy were your jumbo package guys with Malik Agbo last year as your extra big tight end for your big packages. Sweat and Murphy are gone, so you do want kind of a D lineman help you the way they're built, stout, to be able to replace a Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat. I'm not sure in this, this group or on defense if someone fits the skill set to be in the jumbo package. I'm not sure. That'd be my next question. Who are the candidates to be to replace Sweat Murphy in the jumbo packages? That'd be my question for Kyle Flood. And this, the Big 11, Big 12, the 6-0 line package. Oh, and are we going to see more pony? Are we going to see more of the pony package? Because they should use more of the pony package. All right. Those will be my questions. All right. We do have Sark's now. Let's play one of these pieces of audio because I don't know if we have time for both. We can get one of them in. So Sark was at the Texas High School Coaches Association, and he was speaking about a number of different topics. He spoke about the headset communication and also the special assistants. Those are the two cuts that I want to get into. But let's just play the one from the headset communication. I think that one's I think some more meat on that bone because he really goes deep into it. So here's Sark when he was asked about what are the advantages for the headset communication, what are the disadvantages. Who's obviously someone like Sark who's coached in the NFL, he's got experience with it. He was asked about how's that going to help his offense this year.
Well, I think some of that varies to the style of offense. There's a lot of talk right now that the teams that go fast, that really want to go fast, that this is a distinct advantage for them because now you can talk directly to the quarterback. And I'm holding out on that opinion because the other 10 players still need to know what to do, right? And so, yes, I can talk to the quarterback, but how do I get the receivers and the linemen and everybody still knowing those plays? And so would it minimize some of the signaling maybe on offense? But I don't know necessarily that they're going to be able to go faster because they still have to communicate to all those people. I do think it is, and for a team like us who's very multiple personnel groupings, formations, motion shifts. Sometimes we go fast, sometimes we huddle, sometimes we're somewhere in between. It does allow us to be a little bit more efficient to decide what tempo that we're going to operate in or what personnel grouping that we're going to. Why I like it, having spent some time in the NFL and calling plays in the NFL is that you can really communicate with the quarterback, and sometimes just voice inflection from the coach helps the quarterback understand the importance of something in a play. It does allow you to give some subtle tips and reminders, and it maybe not always be for the quarterback. It may be for the running back or the right guard, whoever that is. But I also think there's a real challenge defensively because just to think that one player on defense has a headset in, you still have to get, like I said, get that call to all 11 players on the field. And if a team's going with tempo, that's going to be difficult to do. So I just don't think we can solely rely on the helmet to, coach to player communication, that's the end all be all. We still have to have our mechanisms in place to communicate with all 11 players that are on the field, whether that's signaling, whether that's the signals on field once the player gets that call. But that's probably the challenge. And it's going to be a little bit of a work in progress because the college game is drastically different than the NFL. The NFL, everybody huddles, and until 2 minutes and guys start going no huddle. In college football, there's a lot more no huddle aspects to what teams do. And so the play caller is, especially defensively, is going to have to really be on point. Or is the team trying to go fast or not? And I think it's important that the play caller doesn't panic, that we show a lot of composure as a coaching staff to get our players the call in a timely fashion, but let's not be too quick to jump to a conclusion that they're necessarily going fast. And so there's layers to this thing that we work through in spring ball, but that we're going to have to continue to work through in training camp and really the first few weeks of the season.
All right, there you go. Start talking about the headset communication. Definitely going to be an advantage for any coach who has been a coordinator, play caller in the NFL and had to actually execute headset communication. I'm sure that the coach is doing it in practice, trying to get used to it. But if you've done it in a game and had real-time reaction from your quarterback in a stressful environment with the crowd noise and all the controlled chaos around them, everybody reacts a little bit differently when, the fit hits the shan. So you can be really calm in practice and trying to execute it. But in the game situation, things could get a little bit heated, could be different. We've heard in the NFL a lot of times there can be like technical issues, technical difficulties. Multiple times I've heard about that in the NFL. And that's why Sark wants, he knows that too. That's why he's like, no, we're still going to have our usual communication. That's not going to stop. We're just adding the element of the headset communication. All right, there you go. That's Sark. We got some more Sark audio. We'll get into that a little bit later on in the show. But next, let's get into the topic for the big fat poll of the day and also your musically themed day of the week. We'll dive into that coming up next right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn.
Back on the Rodcast on a Tuesday morning. That means it's a top of the charts Tuesday, playing songs that were number one this day in history, starting it off with some Wild Thing, making you think of Major League and Charlie Sheen and Major League coming out to Wild Thing. Let's get to the big fat poll of the day. You can check us out on the text line 512-447-3776, or we'll get it posted up on X at the Horn ATX.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the Day on the Horn.
Big fat poll of the day today, since we were talking about Dak Prescott, we heard Stephen Jones bring up the mention of Matthew Stafford, and as a comparison of someone who later in his career was able to find it and win a Super Bowl, I thought I would look at the older quarterbacks that are still starting in the NFL without a Super Bowl ring. And there's really 5. And one of them doesn't really feel like a franchise quarterback. Yeah, but there's really 5 of them over 30 years old. And I'll put one of them is actually not even 30 yet, but will turn 30 during the season. But if we look at starting quarterbacks that are over 30, there's 3 that have won a Super Bowl in Stafford, Rodgers, and Wilson. Those 3 have already all won a Super Bowl. Jacoby Brissett technically is a starting quarterback and is over 30. However, we're not going to count him because he is clearly not a franchise quarterback at all. No. They've already drafted the person that they want to be their franchise quarterback. So your quarterbacks that are over 30, currently over 30, starting quarterbacks, franchise quarterback, Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott, Derek Carr, and Geno Smith. Those would be your 4 that are over 30 starting and should be starting for the entire season.
Okay.
If you want to throw in a 5th, Jared Goff turns 40 in October, so he will be by the end of the season. He will be turns 30 in October, so he will be one of those players before the end of the season. He will be a 30-year-old quarterback without a Super Bowl win. So the question is, which quarterback 30 or above is most likely to win a Super Bowl next?
Oh, that is a good question. Out of that group.
So out of that group, because there's not that many of them.
And do we count Jared Goff or no?
I'm gonna put Jared Goff in instead of Geno. I feel it'll put the poll a little bit more on skew.
Yeah, and you can always put like a little asterisk next to Jared Goff and he's turning 30. Yeah,
he turns 30.
That's good. It's between Goff and Dak
because Baker Mayfield is 29, but just turned 29, so he will not be 30 until next season. So Baker does not fall in either.
Okay. Yeah, and Goff, it's crazy to think that the Detroit Lions would be closer, but I think the Detroit Lions right now, at least they've proven that they can get past a certain point. The Cowboys just can't get past the division round right now. That's Dak's right now. That is the monkey on his back. He's got to get past the division round. Got to.
Yeah.
That's the next step for him. I mean, last year was a huge step for him too, because regular season wise, we've never seen Dak play that well. MVP caliber season. All pro caliber season. I do think, man, he's got to figure out a way to get past the division round. And then I think Dak silences a lot of the haters. But until then, no. I think Jared Goff is closer. I think right now, and Jared Goff has proven it. He's won. He's went to a Super Bowl.
Who's closer, Dak Prescott or Kirk Cousins?
Dak.
Okay.
Because Atlanta. It really depends on how quickly that offense gels. They got some offensive weapons, though. They do. I could see Atlanta can make a move in the next couple of years. They could, because those weapons with Bijan and Drake on and Kyle,
I mean,
they're loaded.
And that's in a division that's not very tough, so you should be able to get some wins in that division. I mean, Derek Carr's he's in the poll, but Derek, we don't think the Saints are doing anything. So you would have to say he would get traded somewhere else again and then get a shot to win. Before he would get into that conversation, but he is a starting quarterback over 30 years old, and they don't have a backup ready to go in New Orleans, so we'll not put him in there. And for the people who said, for the people on the text line who were saying none of the above, I get it. That's why I did not phrase it. Will win a Super Bowl. I said most likely to win a Super Bowl next
of that group. Yeah, I said that's crazy to think. None of them, but Jared Goff and Dak are your 2.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Cowboys are close, and they're in the same conference. And I don't think Detroit's closer. Still got to go through San Fran. It still goes through San Fran, and Detroit was up on them. Hell, you were up on them. Detroit was up on San Fran. What were they up on them? 2 touchdowns on San Fran.
Yeah, they were up against them, and so you could say that is a team that has.
They were closer. Cowboys last time they played San Fran. It's not. I mean, they don't get close to them.
No, and I mean, but this is also somewhat the thought experiment for the Cowboys in the sense of, do you sit and say at 30, like, we can't sign him long term because no one thinks any of these guys have a chance? Like if we pay him all this money, and the window's closed. The window has been closed. It's already closed, and we're paying money to continue closed window. That nothing's going to open it unless somehow we draft 2 more Pro Bowlers in the first and second. We find a couple of other Pro Bowlers or a couple of all pros in the next, luckily just find them at major positions, which you've done. I mean, you found good players, but like, what do you have to find? What do you have to do to get over the hump at this point? If you're the Cowboys, or do you say we have to have a better quarterback and we can't afford to spend all of our money on 3 guys? It's just bringing up that conversation, because when you look at it and say these are the guys, there's not that many of them, and no one really feels any of them are competing for a championship.
No, not right now. I don't see it. It's just like I said, the Detroit Lions are closer than the Cowboys are. That's interesting. Though, bringing up Dak though about, man, I think maybe they should sign up to a short-term deal, because you're right about the window. I mean, their window, basically, this is the last year of that window. I think when Mike McCarthy came in, it's always a 5-year window. No head coach quarterback pairing have won their first Super Bowl together outside of that 5-year window. So if you don't win it in your first 5 years as a head coach quarterback combination, history would tell you that you don't have a shot. At one point, somebody is going to do it, but it hasn't happened in the Super Bowl history. So I don't see the Cowboys being that team. The Ravens are getting really close to that window. They probably have come close to exhausting the window. Buffalo, they've surpassed that window. And the NFL builds that league to give you a 5-year window. It builds the league that way, the CBA and the way everything's constructed with the draft. So we'll see what the Cowboys do. You're right about that. Maybe they should sign them to a short-term, fully guaranteed deal. Give a 2-year fully guaranteed deal with a 3rd-year option or something. If you don't want to sign them to the 4 to 5-year deal, which is what all the young quarterbacks are getting 4-year deals because they're young quarterbacks. All right, good stuff there. We'll have the topic for the big fat poll today. We'll have that posted for you on the X account at the Horn ATX. We come back, we'll get into some Cowboys discussion. Mike Zimmer, we'll jump to the defensive side of things. Mike Zimmer spoke with the guys on 105 through the Fan, and we'll hear some of that audio. We'll also get into some of the storylines coming from the Olympics. We'll give you some of the Olympic breakdown. My man Patrick has the Horn headlines. We also have Rod's rant of the day. We are loaded coming up. Next hour, we have all of that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the Horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Aside from the traffic, Austin is one of the best cities in the country. That's why it continues to grow. And yes, people keep moving here, and that does not help the traffic problem. But that's one of the reasons that the city continues to grow and thrive. And one of the reasons for that growth is our good friends at Ironworkers Local 482. Many of the iconic landmarks you see in this city were actually built and constructed by the skilled craftsmanship of Ironworkers Local Union 482, like the Pennybacker Bridge and DKR Stadium. The folks over at Ironworkers Local 42 don't just go to the office, they build it. So if you're looking for an exciting employment opportunity or a refreshing career change, or you want a new challenge, or you want to simply feel valued by your employer, you can become a valued member of this prestigious organization, Ironworkers Local Union 482. And right now is a great time to do it. They're hiring over 3,000 people for a huge project right here in Central Texas. They're offering competitive wages, competitive benefits, a pension plan. They even offer training for unskilled labor through their apprenticeship program. So become a member of Ironworkers Local 482, and you'll take pride in the type of teamwork and craftsmanship that help shape the future of our great city. Maximize your potential and accept the challenge of becoming the best version of yourself by going online today to apply at ironworkers482.org. That's ironworkers482.org. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday. That's when my man Patrick plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. One of my favorite musically themed days of the week, top of the charts Tuesday. So we appreciate him and all of his efforts. We also appreciate him for coming up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day. What is the topic for the big fat poll of the day, Patrick?
Which quarterback 30 or older is most likely to win a Super Bowl next?
Yeah, and you gave us the short list. Actually, it's a lot shorter than I thought. I thought there'd be more older starting quarterbacks, but there aren't. You said it's Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins. Jared Goff is not quite there, but he's gonna turn 30 this year.
Yes, he will turn 30 during the season.
During the season. Who was the
Derek
other one
Carr?
you said? I said Carr. Who's the other?
Jared Goff. I mean, sorry, Geno Smith.
Geno Smith.
Geno
That
Smith.
was the other one. Geno. See, Geno. I apologize, Geno. So forgettable. I apologize about that, Geno. Yeah. Yeah, Geno. I just don't see it. Geno was brought there to be and I say that he was brought there to be a bridge quarterback, but so was Jared Goff.
Yeah,
Jared
there's
Goff,
also
there's
also Pete Carroll's gone now, and so that is a new identity.
Very true.
Seahawks right now that
yes.
I could imagine they will be moving on and changing things up here in the next couple of years.
Well, they got the offensive coordinator from Kalen DeBoer from Washington.
Yes.
Right. Ryan Grubb is there now. And Mike McDonald is a defensive mastermind. So I don't know how long it's going to take him to get the defense situated. But if he gets the defense situated quick, they'll keep him in every game.
Yeah. No, I just, it feels like at some point
we'll see how good that offense is. But I am not saying they're going to make a Super Bowl. I'm not saying at all. I'm just saying that maybe I'm underrating Geno Smith and what, he can be. He's a bridge quarterback now. And then maybe did they have a great year? People start looking at it a little bit differently because, he did have a very, circuitous route to become, was somewhat of a franchise quarterback, at least because they've basically decided that Geno is for the time being their guy, and nobody ever thought Geno would be considered that again. So he's definitely had a reclamation project. And by the way, that's a Dave Canales story. Yeah, once again. So yeah, I'm with you. So I'm not making a case for Geno Smith. Matter of fact, he's not even listed on the poll.
No, I mean, because also Geno Smith, he's 33 this year. Yeah, I think he turns. He turns 34 this season. He's got 1 year left on the contract. After that, he'll be 35. I can't imagine they're going to be trying to bring back a 36-year-old Geno Smith.
No, they're moving on. As well they should. But I think Geno has shocked everybody. Nobody thought Geno's story would work out the way it has. But yeah, to your question, which QB 30 or above is most likely to win a Super Bowl next? Right now Goff is probably the closest, and then it's Dak Prescott behind him. Kirk Cousins could be a sleeper because if if he awakens Atlanta's offense, and they're going to be running that Sean McVay, Shanahan system. And by the way, Raheem Morris is a defensive guy, so I'm assuming the defense will be okay as well. But if Kirk Cousins, if he picks up where he left off last season before he got hurt with those weapons, they can make some noise in that division. But can they make noise in the NFC? Can any of these teams beat San Fran? And the only team that's proven that they had a shot was Detroit, because Detroit was up on them and probably should have beat them. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, at the end of the day, none of them could put Bijan on it. So, we know.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, but it's Bijan's going to be great in that offense. With Drake London and Kyle Pitts, they could be a problem, especially now in that Shanahan system. And Bijan's probably right this season. He should probably be a fantasy. I don't know how highly he's being drafted, but this is the year to draft him high, fantasy wise. This is it. Last year, I think he was okay, but people complained that he wasn't utilized enough in the red zone. I guarantee you that won't be the case with this new regime. He'll be the focus in the red zone. All right, there you go. So let's stop for the big fat poll today. Appreciate that, Patrick. We'll come back to that. Go check it out at the Horn ATX on the X account. We'll get into some Dallas Cowboys discussion. We'll hear from Mike Zimmer. He was on with the guys on 105 through the fan earlier this week. So we'll hear from him talking about that defense. People may be sleeping on the Cowboys defense. I mean, with Dan Quinn there, it was a top 5 defense. They still return, most of the main pieces of that defense from the last couple of years. They missed the defensive play caller. He's gone, kind of the architect of the defense. But Mike Zimmer is one of the better defensive play callers in the league. And I wonder if we're underselling the Cowboys defense and how good it can be this season. Top 5, still going to be a top 10 defense. All right, so we'll get into that coming up. We got Rod's rant coming up on the other side. We'll get in Rod's rant. We'll dive into something that is having a renaissance, if you will, in the NFL. And you're going to see a lot more of it coming up in this 2024 season. So we'll dive into that too as well. But first, let's get updated, educated, and informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros dropped the first game of their series against the Pirates on Monday, 5-3. The Astros pitching held strong on a day where starter Jake Bloss was a late scratch, pitching 5 perfect innings before allowing their first hit on a solo homer. But the back of the Astros bullpen gave up 4 runs in the final 2 innings, allowing the Pirates to pull off the win. Houston also finalized a trade sending Jake Bloss, Joey Loperfido, and Will Wagner to Toronto for left-hander Yusei Kikuchi. The 33-year-old Kikuchi has a 4.75 ERA this season, but has thrown 130 strikeouts with only 30 walks. And the Rangers got a 6-3 victory over the Cardinals with the Nathan Eovaldi picking up his 8th win of the season. 5 different players picked up RBIs for the Rangers in a group effort, including a 2-run homer from Lowe to give the Rangers some needed insurance runs in the 7th. The Rangers also made a series of roster moves, including trading Michael Lorenzen to Kansas City for a minor league left-hander Walter Pennington, and then activated third baseman Josh Young and pitcher Cody Bradford from the 60-day IL before placing John Gray on the 15-day IL. Max Scherzer will get start tonight for the Rangers. And your current USA medal count in the Olympics, USA still sitting at 20 medals overall, 3 gold, 8 silver, and 9 bronze for the USA. And that is your Horn Headlines.
USA, USA, USA. Love that. Did you see that? How was it? Is it Chase Budinger that he's
yes, on the beach volleyball team?
Yeah, I didn't even really know that, but I think he played like in high school too.
Yeah, I've seen a few pieces about that. Yeah, Chase Budinger, formerly of the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, I didn't even know that.
I saw an article about that. Went in and got into.
He's great too. Like apparently he's like really good.
I know they dominated their first matchup. As I saw, they dominated their first matchup.
So I didn't know that. I wonder. Yeah, that's. I mean, I don't know where he's from. Is he from like the West Coast? Is he from?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Okay,
not a Chase Budinger historian.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, trust me. Only reason I asked you is because I know you watch a lot of hoops and you know a lot of random NBA knowledge, and I just thought maybe. But no, it's interesting. I think there'd be more guys who would. I don't know exactly. Maybe you got to be a West Coast person. So if you played hoops but also played volleyball, was like Wilt Chamberlain, like a famous, like Wilt Chamberlain, was like a dominant volleyball player, if I'm not mistaken, too. Like a real competition, like elite level volleyball.
Yes, he played high school in California. Chase.
Okay, see, that makes sense, right? That makes sense. So you're a hooper, but then you're like, no, I'm also involved in beach volleyball culture. So I wonder if you don't get more. I wonder if he would inspire more hoopers who are also volleyball, like beach volleyball guys. That's a nice little transition. I don't know how long he played in the league. I don't remember.
He played for a little while, but I think most guys that are like 6'8" and above that would be really good at it also are just like, I don't want to use my knees anymore ever again.
That's true. Great point. I totally agree.
I'm in a lot of pain right now, and I don't want to continue to put this massive pain on my knees.
Yeah. And that's exactly, you got to be something you love because they have no incentive. They get,
exactly.
They're
not making huge money. Yeah.
Yes, and exactly. The money you're making to devote your life to being the best in the world at an Olympic sport, not necessarily going to get you the NBA payday that you got. So I just wonder if he'll inspire a couple of the stories like that down the line, because that's a pretty cool story. I didn't realize that until I read that the other day.
So he played 09 to 2016, by the way, 09 to 2016.
Damn, he played. He long. He played. He signed a couple of contracts. So yeah, he's got that good money. But I didn't realize. So he's actually a little older than I thought too.
He is 36.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a little old for an Olympian. We've seen some older Olympians because I guess that's a little bit older. I think we're starting to see. I would love to see a study done about the age of Olympians. I feel like we're starting to see older Olympians.
I think that there's
just because of nutrition and
there's
technology.
nutrition. I would also imagine guys like that. He has the money where he's able to train for the Olympics.
That is true.
Where
That's
you really normally, if you're 30 years old, you cannot afford to keep training for the Olympics unless you're already successful. Like it's very hard to live that life and not really bring in the money the same way. You're working 2 jobs to try and go, and it's just very difficult. So normally it's a young person's game to work that many hours and train that many hours.
And they definitely, I guess the age you have to account for the dream team, really, which I guarantee increased the age a ton because you have so many veteran NBA players.
Well, when they started to relax the amateur rules and allow more professional athletes and people that have made money to enter in the Olympics, that changed the game a lot. Yeah,
you have to account for that in the study. But I feel like just watching the Olympics, I feel like the athletes, and for all the countries, by the way, are getting they seem like they're a little bit older than they used to be back in the day. All right, there you go. Some Olympic conversation. We'll get back to it. We'll get you an update on the medal count. We'll get some of the crazy stuff. Actually, I got Olympic-related story that we can get to and off the record coming up. But first, and I know I've talked some Cowboys, so I'm going to talk some Texans too. I got a Texans update for you from training camp that we'll get to a little bit later on. And if this player picks up where they left off last year, it could really elevate the entire defense to top 10 level. It really could take the defense to a different level of effectiveness and in terms of schematic variety and versatility if this player picks up where they left off last year. So we'll get into that for the Texans. But first, let's hear from Mike Zimmer. So Mike Zimmer was on with the guys on 105.3 The Fan. And usually Mike Zimmer, he doesn't open up to the media a lot, but he seemed to be pretty relaxed with these guys because I think they've known him for before. So he actually answered a lot of their questions, and I thought he gave some great answers. So in terms of breaking down this Zimmer defense, how it's going to look different from Dan Quinn, they got into a lot of that kind of stuff. They even asked him what I think one of my favorite questions was about what he finds difficult to defend these days. Like, what is the most difficult thing to defend? And it really was a great answer. So let's start with how he builds his system as a DC. You have your principles, your core principles, your ideology, your philosophy, but then you also have the players. And you want to build it around their strengths. You don't want to be so stubborn as to, try to force a square peg into a round hole. Here's what Zimmer says about how he constructs in his system.
Yeah, it doesn't really work that way. Usually you have your principles and the way that you do things. And then, you start to take a look at the players and see what their strengths are and their weaknesses and how you can kind of fit them into different places. Quite honestly, I've been very, very impressed with this group of defensive players. They've been trying to do what we're asking them to do. We're asking them to do some different things. We're asking them to change up some of the ideas that they've done in the past, but they've seemed to be really working hard at it. So I've been very impressed.
All right. So Zimmer's talking about it's a little bit of both, right? You got your principles, but you also got to look at the strengths of the players. And he was also asked about how progressive his defense is. Some people assume Mike Zimmer's defense because, and even I've described it, I said it's not as progressive. It's not as modern as a Dan Quinn defense, but it's much more stable. And it's, I guess you consider it a more traditional defense. And because that people assume antiquated. As a traditional almost means old. It's an old defense. And here's Mike Zimmer when he's asked about how progressive his defense is and how quickly it can adapt to some of the modern changes to the game. Here's what Mike Zimmer had to say.
I think it's always a chess game. The offenses are always trying to figure out one better way to against the defense and vice versa too. And so it always kind of goes around and round cyclically. I always used to say, it used to be the wishbone, and now it's then it's the run and shoot, and then it comes back to the zone reads, which is possibility of a variation of really the option game. So, I think it all kind of evolves, and you just got to keep evolving. And, we've got a lot of smart coaches in the room with us. And so I think that's been good.
All right. So that's Zim talking about is just defenses. You have to make your defense malleable. You have to account for growth with your defense and evolution and adaptation. You have to. If you're just stuck in your own ways and you're not allowing for your defense to be malleable to adapt or adaptability, then you won't have that job for long. That's just the reality of being a defensive coordinator these days. Here's my favorite question that he was asked. I thought he did a really good job kind of breaking down why this concept causes so much confusion and so much chaos for defenses. But he was asked, what for a defensive coordinator these days, for you particularly, what is the most difficult concept idea to defend these days? Here's what Zimmer had to say.
Yeah, when one of the things is, all these jet motions and things, because typically defenses are built on either a 2-by-2 formation or 3-by-1 formation. And when they're running and you're not able to really make the checks to 2-by-2 or 3-by-1, now they're getting you to play a 2-by-2 formation, but they're really in a 3-by-1 formation. So that's been difficult. Sometimes you get nickelbacks playing linebacker and linebackers playing nickel, things like that because of those things, unless you're playing all man to man, and then they just crack in, the guy chasing the guy. The other thing, this outside motion that some of the teams are doing now with the real fast, so they kind of get a running head start, almost like Canadian Football League,
Yeah.
So, some of those things that are causing some issues.
Oh, there's so much to break down in the clip. First of all, now you see why I tell Sark needs to use more motion, right? Sark said 50 to 55%. No, use more of it. You need to be where the Dolphins are. Dolphins are at 80-something%, 80% pre-snap motion rate. The 49ers are around 75% pre-snap motion rate. Kansas City Chiefs are at 64%. The Green Bay Packers are 60+%. You should be in the 75% range, because there's Mike Zimmer telling you, yeah, it makes life hell on defense, because defense has a defense has rules. I have rules that I have to operate by. And usually those rules are built on strong side and weak side of the formation, and is built on where the strength is, and it's at its most rudimentary form. Football is just a numbers game, guys. You're just trying to win the numbers advantage at the line of scrimmage, the numbers advantage in the passing game, create 2-on-1s, right? Create numbers advantages across the board. That's what the RPO literally is based on. It's a run pass option. The option is based on, where do I have the numbers advantage? If I have a numbers advantage in the box, I hand it off because we have the numbers advantage. We're going to win there. If I don't have the numbers advantage in the box and the defense does, well, I'm going to throw it. Why? Because you can't have the numbers advantage everywhere. If you don't have the numbers advantage inside, then you got it outside. If you don't got it outside, then you got it inside. Unless you got a bad mofo that demands a double team, because then you flip the numbers advantage. Takes 2 of yours to block my 1. Now I got the numbers advantage back, or at least I can even it out. And so what he's telling you there is when they motion, they go speed motion from a 2-by-2 set to a 3-by-1 set. Yeah, all hell breaks loose on defense, because I got to change all the rules and I got to do it in 5 seconds. So if we don't anticipate that motion, or if he motions all across formation and then comes back, then I got to change the rules, change them back real quick. And what if they snap it? Which is why motion at the snap is important. They're snapping it while the dude's in motion. I'm changing the damn rules of the defense while in motion, and he's snapping it while in motion. So at the defense, I'm always caught in the middle of chaos and confusion. And that's what he's saying. He's like, yeah, we got to have built-in, now baked-in rules for motion, and assume that they are going to motion and bake that in, like within every play. And you never know how they're going to motion. They can do that cheat motion where they motion outside, almost gives them a running start, as he talked about, trying to create switch releases and trying to create pick routes and rub routes. Or it can just be changing the numbers advantage from one side of the formation to the other. Oh, it's hell. And like I said, I don't know why Sark should use it more. He should use it more. And that's why the Shanahan clan, they are devoted to it. Like I said, the Dolphins are at 80-something% of their plays have pre-snap motion. 80-something percent. 49ers are at 75+%. I think that's, if I'm sorry, you should increase that rate. Okay, so I love that little point there about the pre-snap motions. And it also shows you why Dan Quinn's defense was so unique, right? Dan Quinn's defense is a modern defense built to defend those modern principles. Dan Quinn doesn't worry about his linebackers having to cover, and he doesn't worry about his DBs having to come down and be run support because he plays 3 safeties and plays a lot of sub packages. And he likes hybrid defenders because hybrid defenders are never really at a true disadvantage because they're hybrids. All right. So if I'm a hybrid, usually my disadvantage is against the run as a hybrid. But if you want to put my hybrid in coverage, perfectly fine with that. He's a hybrid. He can go. And if your hybrid is really good, like if you're a safety, Jaron Curse is really good against the run, then that helps you. So a lot of his principles are built on, that's why his defense are built on speed. They're built on hybridism. So he can handle motion is probably not something that Dan Quinn stresses about in terms of it changing the rules of his defense. Because his defense, as I told you, is built on chaos and is built on, there's a lot of gambling, takes a lot of risks because he wants to pay off, which are takeaways and sacks and pressures on the quarterback. Zim prefers not to take those risks and prefers, while playing more fundamentally sound, to force turnovers almost within better structure in the framework of the defense. Dan Quinn wants not only schematically, strategically to gamble, but he also wants his players gambling. That's why he likes Trevon Diggs gambling. He likes to run Bland out there taking chances and trying to undercut passes, and them, obviously, at times sacrificing the integrity of the coverage to go make a play on the football. In Zim's defense, he's like, no, don't do that. Always integrity of the coverage first. We'll make a play on the football when it presents itself. We don't want to force the issue. Dan Quinn's a force the issue guy. Let's force the issue. More twisted stunts than anybody else. More defensive pre-snap disguise. Lots of bump and run coverage. Lots of sub packages and hybrids, so the quarterbacks can't identify where players are lining up and how they're lining up. He wanted to force the issue. Mike Zimmer's going to do less of that. All right, getting back to the Zimmer stuff, he was asked about analytics, how he feels about analytics as a defensive coordinator as well. Some guys are pig-headed about analytics. Here's what Zim had to say.
Honestly, there's a deal that I've always said, when I sit down and I watch film and I'm sitting there watching 1st and 10, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6, 9, 2nd and 10 plus, to me, that's all analytics. I'm sitting there, I'm going to do all the analytics with it. I think there's a time and place for that. I do think that, it's based on numbers and numbers only. They don't know who's playing, who's hurt, the wind conditions, weather conditions, how you've practiced during the week and things like that. So, it's another tool, but it's just, I don't know.
Do you find it's more useful as a head coach than as a coordinator?
That's
in terms of game management situations.
Yeah, I guess, but at the end of the day, you still have to pull the trigger. What you think, is it 4th and 1? One time I was in Minnesota, I went for it on 4th and 1 on my own 30-yard line or something, and we ran a quarterback sneak and didn't get it, and so I'm thinking, man, you're a dummy. But luckily we got an interception on the next play and they bailed me out. But it just if it works, it's great. If it doesn't, you're not too smart.
About that. That's usually how it goes down. He was also asked about his coverage philosophy, and this is when he gets into the difference between his coverage philosophy and Dan Quinn's. Like I said, Dan Quinn wants his corners to force the issue, take chances. Everybody's going to get beat. I want my corners to get beat, but also make plays on the football. I need you to win your fair share, at least half, if not more. But I said Zimmer's a little bit more conservative when it comes to his coverage philosophy. Here's what Mike Zimmer had to say about that.
I've always said there's an element of denying your person the ball. So if I'm covering you tight enough, the ball's going somewhere else, which makes the quarterback pull the ball down and opportunity for more sacks, quarterback hits and fumbles and things like that. So obviously we're going to be aggressive on the outside, but Parcells used to have a saying, you get beat by giving up big plays, sacks, turnovers, things like that, penalties. So if, and he used to always say, hey, you're gonna win half the games, you don't beat yourself. You go out there and you play good, solid, fundamental football. You're gonna win half your games, and then what you do in the other half is when you got to go make some plays. So I don't know if I answered your question. Obviously, we always love to get turnovers, but we want to be fundamentally sound too.
There you go. Told you. He's so the DBs, the corners, they're gonna probably have to change up their method a little bit, change up their approach just to make sure that they are fundamentally sound. And so if you're gonna make a play on the ball, do it through the upfield shoulder as opposed to going underneath the wide receiver to make undercutting the wide receiver to make that play on the ball. If probably don't want to be baiting. I know that Trevin Diggs loves to bait and Deron Bland. They love baiting quarterbacks, and you don't want to take that away from a corner, but you want them to be a little bit more judicious about when they're going to bait a quarterback on a play. Make sure maybe you got some help over the top when you're going to do that, so you don't give up too big of a play. I think Dan Quinn allowed them a lot of freedom. And a lot of he allowed them to have it their own, I think, discretion about how they wanted to approach and be aggressive. I don't think Zimmer's going to do that. I think Zimmer's going to demand, like he said, the integrity of the coverage first, then go make a play on the ball when it presents itself. Don't necessarily force the issue. Okay, last cut here. This is Zim talking about Micah Parsons. Everybody wants to know, how is he going to use Micah Parsons? Are they going to move him around? They're going to put him at off-ball linebacker some, where he's going to be a defensive end on the edge the entire time. Here's what Mike Zimmer had to say.
Well, we've sat down like every morning. We sit down and we come in there and we talk about things. And he's a very, very smart guy. He's brilliant, and he has some good ideas. And if they're good ideas, we'll implement them. And when you have a puzzle piece like him who can do so many different things, we're going to try to not allow the offense to know where he is all the time. And I think that's a big part of kind of what he's saying. So it's been great, sitting down with him, getting to know him. And so we're excited to go from there.
All right, there you go. He's basically saying that, he's going to talk to Micah about it. And him and Micah will kind of come to an understanding. How does Micah see himself being maximized? He's talking about compromise there with Micah, which is interesting. So he's not being kind of stubborn about, hey, he's going to play this position, and that's where we're going to put him all the time. And I'm glad they're going to move him around. You can't have Micah in the same place every time, because then they're just going to run at him every play, like the Packers did. Got to move him around a little bit. That way they don't just know how to run at him, I should say, on run plays, and then they want to slide protection his way on pass plays. And that just that's gonna make life hell on Micah. And you want to make life hell on the offense, and you want to be able to engineer matchup advantages for him. The way you do that, you move him around just a little bit. You ain't got to move him around all the time, but I would move him around as much, if not more, than they did last season. All right, good stuff there. Thank you, Patrick, for the audio. We come back, we'll get into Rod's rant, and we'll talk some Texans. And we've been talking a lot of Cowboys on the show, so we'll get some Texans talking. And if this player picks up where he left off last year, it could totally transform the entire complexion of that Texans defense. We'll discuss it on the other side, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into Rod's Rant of the Day. I want to talk a little Texans here where we got some time. I saw the note, and I'm not one of the people that keeps up with interceptions in training camp. Some people do. I think it's a thing. I'd wait to the games to keep up with interceptions. But I did see that Derek Stingley, that he had an interception on C.J. Stroud. They won the ones-on-ones, good on good. And by all accounts, he has had an exceptional training camp. And he's been like considered right playing at an elite, practicing, I should say, at an elite level. Last year, at the end of last season, though, he was playing at an elite level. Last year, if you go look at basically last season, weeks 11 through 18, so second half of the season. He was the leader in interceptions and pass deflections over the second half of the season. 13 pass deflections and 5 interceptions. He only played in 11 of his first 25 NFL games. Don't forget that. He was dealing with an injury, and people really weren't sure if he was, because he had a lot of injuries late in his LSU career. And then early on had some injuries in his Texans career. But lately it looks like the light is going off for Derek Stingley, and he even in the playoffs, he was playing pretty well in those playoff games. Well, the first playoff game against the Browns. I don't know if any the Texans played really well against the Ravens, but in the playoff game they won, he played really well and actually lined up against Amari Cooper, and actually had a really good game against Amari Cooper, kind of shadowed him. And he did that during the regular season too. They've been using him to shadow receivers, meaning they don't care if the opponent knows that they are in man-to-man. They trust Stingley. Hey, follow this guy all around and across the formation, and he's your dude. And he was great. How about this? Last season, he allowed 26 catches total on nearly 50 targets. So you're getting close to a 50% completion percentage against him, probably a little under that. He allowed only 61 yards after the catch total. He did allow 5 touchdowns, but got 5 interceptions. I always say if you're going to get beat, hey, you got to win your fair share. Win as much, if not more, than you lose. 14 PBUs and opponent passer rating of 76. And like I said, he missed some serious time early on in the season. So if he picks up where he left off, now, if he picks up where he left off, they got to pay him. They got to pay him big money because he'll be paid like one of the top corners. I believe his contract will be coming up. One of his contract years coming up pretty soon, maybe after this season. But Derek Stingley could be in the conversation for being one of the best corners in the conference, but also in the league. If he can put together an entire season like he had the second half of last season. Basically, it'd be the same kind of way that you are projecting Jordan Love. He essentially did what Jordan Love did from a cornerback perspective. I think Jordan Love was pretty average and was, lackluster in his first half of the season in weeks 1 through 9. And then something happened in week 10 and Jordan Love became a different player. The light came on. The belief is that is happening for Derek Stingley. And that is continued through training camp. Through training camp, he looks just as good as he did in the second half of last year. So that for the Texans, that would be big if he does indeed, take that next step to being a potential All-Pro for you. That would, like I said, that would be a game changer for the Texans in terms of how you construct the game plan, how you build the scheme, all those different things. And they expected him to be a cornerstone, but I will say they weren't sure if it was going to work out because of the injuries. But if it does, give Nick Caserio credit. That's another one that worked out for him. It was looking bad too because that was a Sauce Gardner draft, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they traded him right before Sauce Gardner. He does have another year on his contract and then the club option year after that.
Okay, so they'll probably wait till after this season start talking about it. But if he has a big year, he has played. If you go look at it, just 17 games, I believe, over the past 2 seasons. And that's kind of a full sample size, but he like I said, he's looking like, I think, one of the better young corners and that may work out. And then you got Jalen Petrie, who they're moving back to nickel. He was a nickel when he was at Baylor. That's when he won Defensive Player of the Year in the Big 12, and we all remember him. He was a hell of a player. Still was a great player with the Texans at safety. They believe the move to nickel, though, is going to help him out. And I think they want to cross-train guys, and they want to promote versatility. Everybody does. We just heard the Mike Zimmer quote and him talking about sometimes my linebackers got to be DBs, sometimes my DBs got to be linebackers. Yeah, that's why we want versatility now. We want guys, linebackers who can cover and stop the run, and we want DBs who can cover and stop the run. And I think they're just cross-training guys to try to get more guys who are versatile, so that versatility offers you solutions on defense. So there you go. Derek Stingley, the latest update for the Texans, playing at a really, really high level. And secondary should be the only issue is the cornerback spot opposite of him, kind of like Texas. They got Jeffrey Okudah and they got CJ Henderson, I believe is his name. Those are the guys competing, but they like Kamari Lassiter. I will say that the Georgia cornerback they drafted, they like him. I mean, they've been talking a lot about him. He's been getting some reps with the ones. They really like Lassiter. So I don't know if they like him enough to, let him start as a rookie. I don't think they like him that much, but I wouldn't doubt if they're playing with these other two. I think those other two guys signed 1-year deals. So just bringing them in, it's kind of prove it deals. If they would just let those two guys, or one of them, man the corner spot early on, and then later in the season, Kamari Lassiter either makes a move, or next season it's his job. I think they like him that much. So that's something also to look out for with the Texans. And I think there's another Texans note that I want to share, and we'll get into this a little bit later on because I want to dive into really the offense. And there's a prediction, basically, can the Texans have 2,000-yard receivers out of the group they have? Stephon Diggs and both Nico Collins be 1,000-yard receivers. Right now, I feel like they could, but Dalton Schultz is going to gobble up some of that. Tank Dell's going to gobble up some. Joe Mixon's going to gobble up some. They brought Joe Mixon in to be a weapon in the pass game, guys, not necessarily in the run game. They need to boost the run game, but I think the Texans are about to go, not too pass happy, but they're about to be more pass happy than they were last year. There's no question. And more 11 personnel out there too. The question is, can they have 2,000-yard receivers? I think they can, but it's going to be tight. It'll barely get there. It's 17 games though. So 17 games is a lot of games. That's a lot of games if you're throwing the football.
Yeah.
I think they can get there with 7. I think they can get 2,000-yard receivers. I got to look and see how common that is in the NFL these days. I know it is. I know it happens, but how common is it? We're talking about 4 or 5 teams every year. We're talking about 2 teams every year that can do that. The Texans would be one of those teams, I would say, with Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs, but that's a tall order. 2,000-yard receivers. I got to go see how often that happens. It definitely doesn't happen a lot. Because I think oftentimes you'll see, that one key receiver, that 1,000-yard guy. But I know with Miami now, with these teams paying their number 2 receivers like $28 million, I know there are teams now that are trending in that direction. And so you got the 49ers about to be that kind of team. And the 49ers are different because Debo lines up in the backfield and Debo does so many other things. So it's not necessarily, he's a yards from scrimmage guy, more so than just 1,000-yard receiver. But Miami, Philadelphia, paying 2 receivers that kind of money. And Philadelphia's interesting too because they run the ball a ton with Jalen Hurts and they run the ball a lot, but they can be one of those teams. You got to have the 2 receivers that are capable of it, and then you got to have an offense prolific enough to, and so the 49ers don't throw the ball a lot either. So even they have the receivers capable enough, they don't have the scheme that is that pass happy. The Texans may have the scheme that's pass happy because they're going to go to more 11 personnel, and they potentially not potentially, they do have the quarterback, and they got the receivers that are capable. It's something I don't know how much money I'd put on it, but I feel confident the Texans will be able to pull it off. But like I said, I got to go look at history. The best indicator of future events is past events. I don't see how often it happens in the NFL. It happens a lot. Texas can definitely do it.
I think there was 3 last season.
So that's okay.
I think there was 3.
So I bet it's between 3. I bet it's like 3 to 5, 3 to 4 every year. In between 3 to 5.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. Obviously, can't happen.
I'll tell you too. If you see if you can guess the third, we know Miami.
Yep. That's why they paying 'em.
Miami was in there. The Eagles were in there.
Yep. I get
Can you-
those. Yeah, that's why they paying them.
Can you guess the third?
It can be the 49ers because that's not how they operate. They don't throw
Nope.
it enough. And Debo he's a yards from scrimmage guy. Oh, hold up. I gotta get this. It's not Detroit. They don't have
No,
another.
not Detroit. No.
Wow. I should know this. I'm gonna be mad at myself, aren't I?
I don't know. I don't know if you would.
Really?
I don't know if you would.
Okay.
It was surprising to
like
me.
it should
And it
be
makes
obvious.
sense, but it was not. It was somewhat surprising to me.
Okay, give it to me. I'm gonna miss it.
Tampa Bay.
Damn it. Mike Evans and Godwin. Is it Godwin?
Yes.
Damn
Like
it.
Evans and Godwin. And they had
I
no
should
running
have
game.
got that. They had no running game. You're right. That's surprising because Dave Canales wants to run the ball, but you're right. They abandoned the run and just let Baker sling it. Baker killed it too. That's a good one. That would have, I wouldn't have guessed that. I went through I probably went through 4 or 5 teams, but if you're looking at just best receiver like duos, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the receiver duo makes sense, so it's believable. But yeah, it's also you wouldn't think. Yeah,
No.
Baker Mayfield and that Bucks team that was not great last season. They weren't bad, but they weren't great.
That's why they paid him though. They're
Yeah.
like, hey, dude, this dude, they carry that passing game just carried us, man,
Yeah.
to the playoffs. Let's sign. And you're in that division where, like you said, anybody can win that division. That division's wide open every year, pretty much.
Yeah,
all right.
that's what your quarterbacks Tua, Jalen Hurts, and Baker Mayfield. That had 2 passer, 2.
Yeah.
It's a surprising 3 quarterbacks, but
no, you're right about that. That is a very surprising. So like I said, the Eagles and the Dolphins were clear because they paid them like they were 1,000-yard receivers. So that's why.
Yeah.
I don't know where Godwin is in the pay scale. Mike Evans just got paid again, though. He just got his like end of career kind of deal with them as a player. Yes, I wouldn't have guessed it. You're right. I probably wouldn't have guessed it, but that is a surprise. So he probably happens like 3 times a year. Will the Texans have 2,000-yard receivers? I'm going to say yeah. Now you made me feel even better about it. Now I feel even better. The Baker Mayfield thing put me on top. Like, oh yeah, they're gonna do it. I think the Texans will have. That's one of my Black Stradamus predictions. Then 2,000-yard receivers for the Texans: Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs. All right, thank you for the research, Patrick. Appreciate you. We come back. We'll have off the record. What the fact? I'm speeding up the show. What the facts? What the stats on the other side? Right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn, Rod Babers here. Yeah, I know the traffic can be a bit annoying, but it's actually a sign that the city is growing and thriving. And as the city continues to grow and thrive, so do our friends over at Ironworkers Local Union 482. Many of the iconic landmarks that we love in this city were actually built and constructed by the skilled craftsmanship of Ironworkers Local Union 482, like the Pennybacker Bridge and the DCare Stadium. And right now, the folks over at Ironworkers Local 42 are hiring over 3,000 people for another big project right here in Central Texas. They're offering competitive wages, competitive benefits. They offer a pension plan. They even offer training for unskilled labor through their apprenticeship program. So right now, it's a great time for you to become a member of Ironworkers Local 482. If you're looking for an exciting employment opportunity or a refreshing career change, or you want a new challenge, or you want to feel valued by your employer, you can become a valued member of this prestigious organization, Ironworkers Local 42. And right now is the perfect time to do it. So today, just go online and apply at ironworkers482.org. That's ironworkers482.org. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some what the facts, what the stats. As a matter of fact, this is a perfect segue because we were talking about receivers, basically multiple 1,000-yard receivers, teams with multiple 1,000-yard receivers. And my man Patrick did the research, pointed out that there were 3 teams with 2,000-yard wide receivers. But also let me know in the break that if you count tight ends in that, then the 49ers also adds that because they had 2,000-yard pass catchers because one of them, Kittle, was a 1,000-yard receiver. And of course, you had Brandon Ayuk as a 1,000-yard receiver for them as well. So they would be thrown in that category. So I was wrong. They don't throw it a lot though, considering. So I bet like the average depth of target and the yards per reception for those guys may be a little bit higher too. But that is really interesting. And I point out that Debo is kind of a yards from scrimmage guy usually. Okay, let's get into some other facts and stats here and what the facts, what the stats. All right, so this comes from Jason Reed. He works for ESPN, and it's a Patrick Mahomes stat. So he says, since 2001, there have been 125 drives in the NFL postseason where it was at least the fourth quarter. There was under a minute left to play, and the team on offense trailed by 7 points or fewer at the start. So we got all those. Since 2001, 125 drives in the postseason where it was at least the fourth quarter. There was under a minute left to play, and the team on offense trailed by 7 points or fewer at the start. These are your standard clutch moments for a football team, the do or die drives that win and lose critical games. We've talked about that a lot on the show, right? He said out of those 125 drives, only 40% of them saw the team on offense pull off the actual comeback win and get the points they needed. He pointed out that Tom Brady went 5 for 11 in these situations. So the GOAT, very clutch. He said Drew Brees went 3 for 6. But he said Patrick Mahomes is 7 of 7. Perfect in those dire situations. Wow. Clutch. 7 of 7 in those situations where it's at least the fourth quarter. There's under a minute left to play, and the team on offense trailed by 7 points or fewer at the start of of that drive. And he's 7 of 7. He said it's no matter what metric you're looking at. I mean, there's an argument to be made that Patrick Mahomes is the most clutch player in the history of the NFL. Just throwing it out there. I can literally make that argument right now. You'd be like, no, that's Brady. It's like, actually, you can make the argument he's more clutch than Brady. I'm just saying, you can make the argument right now. I've given you the stats over and over again. I mean, the guy's been down double digits in every damn Super Bowl he's played in, and he's 3-1. Doesn't even make any sense. So yeah, once again, that's another stat to prove it to you. That's how freaky it is. Okay, give me another freaky stat. What the facts, what the stats here? Bijan Robinson. How about this? This is how freaky Bijan Robinson is. I can't wait to see him in that new offense. There, with Raheem Morris there, and then bringing in that McVay Shanahan offense. So Bijan Robinson struggled against light boxes. Light boxes when you have obviously fewer defenders than you have blockers. That's a light box. A loaded box when you have more defenders than you have blockers. Against a light box, he averaged 3.6 yards per carry. 63rd out of 68 running backs. Against heavy boxes, which are more loaded boxes, either balanced or you're a loaded box. I mean, you have more blockers than more defenders than blockers, or as many defenders than blockers. Here's 4.9 yards per carry. 7th best. So against light boxes, he's 3.6 yards per carry, 63rd out of 68 running backs. Against heavy boxes, 4.9 yards per carry, 7th best. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's just how good Bijan is. He's good. So against the heavy box, which is usually your biggest, that's your biggest problem if you're a running team, how to run against a heavy box or a loaded box. Bijan can do that. Now you got to teach him how to run against a light box. That's crazy. And that's a first world problem that Atlanta's got. They'll figure that out. I promise you on that. Another factoid before we get out of here, or what the facts, what the stats. Got a bunch of these, but how about this one? We were talking about. I was looking this up about scrambling quarterbacks because I was looking at the quarterback class coming out. Most scrambles in a Power 5 season per Pro Football Focus since 2014. Drake May and Jaden Daniels both were 1 and 2. 76 scrambles for Drake May, 70 for Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels is also number 3, 67 scrambles in 2019. And then Jacoby Brissett, 66 in 2014. Those are your top scramblers in coming out in the Power 5, dating back to 2014. So Drake May and Jaden Daniels both love to scramble. You know that with Jaden Daniels. Drake May, I didn't know it as much. I didn't realize Drake May was more prone to scrambling as a quarterback than Jaden Daniels, but he is. Facts don't lie. All right, we come back. We'll get into some audio from Stephen Jones, who was on in Dallas during training camp, talking about the Cowboys contract and negotiations with Dak and with CD. So we'll hear from Stephen Jones. We'll also hear from Sark. Sark actually at the Texas High School Coaches Association, talking to the Texas high school coaches, talked about a number of different items, headset communication. He also talked about the special assistants that have been finalized that he's bringing on this year. So we'll hear from Sark when we go behind the burnt orange curtain, talk about the coordinators who are going to be available. It's one of those mile markers, if you will, let you know the season is upon us. The Longhorns only make their coordinators available, or at least Sark only does, twice a year, at the beginning of the season, before training camp, and at the end of the season. So we'll talk about what questions the folks may have, or we have, for the Texas coordinators. All that and more when we return right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn Rod Vapors, coming back on the Horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday edition of the Rodcast. That's when my co-host, the Idealionaire Patrick Davis, that's when he comes up with all the musically themed days of the week. But he comes up with jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. That's why he calls it Top of the Charts Tuesday. So appreciate him hooking us up on the Top of the Charts Tuesday, as always. Also, you can go check out his work on the X account, the Horn ATX. He also wants to know if you can answer the question for the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. What's the topic for the Big Fat Poll today, Patrick?
Big Fat Poll of the day. Which quarterback of 30 or above is most likely to win a Super Bowl next? Right now, Jared Goff is clearly running away with it. Jared Goff, technically 29, will turn 30 this season, so we put him in the poll, and he is running away with it right now with 61% of the votes. Dak coming in second with 19%, and then Derek Carr getting more votes than Kirk Cousins right now.
Derek Carr getting more, yeah, because a lot of people have said that basically Dak Prescott and Kirk Cousins are very similar.
Yeah, but who thinks the Saints are going to win?
No, I don't. I don't think the Saints are going to win. No, I don't.
It's
No.
just the question of if I look at the teams around Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr right now, I'm going to have to go with Kirk Cousins on that one.
Oh, yeah, there's no question. Kirk Cousins has a better supporting cast.
But Derek Carr's got 11%. Kirk Cousins has 8% of the votes. No love for Kirk Cousins.
People just don't believe in Kirk Cousins. They never really have believed in Kirk Cousins. But yeah, I mean, I can see why Jared Goff is running away with it. I mean, guys, they were up 14 points. No, they were actually more than that. They were up, I think, 17 points, if I'm not mistaken, on the 49ers at one point. Yeah, I think it was like a 24-7 lead, if I'm not mistaken, at one point after the first half, and then 49ers ended up coming all the way back. So they were close. They should have won that game. And I think they were inexperienced, and they weren't accustomed to being, that calling their own shot as an organization, because they were pretty cocky at going into that game and then going out there and putting it on the 49ers. It's almost like when I have a dog, and she would chase squirrels like a psychopath all the time. And one time she actually caught a squirrel, didn't know what to do with it, literally just stared at it as she cornered it by the tree. And I was like, what are you going to do with it? And the squirrel just scurried away. She finally caught, she didn't know what to do with it. She had just gotten so used to chasing it. By the time she caught it, she had never worked out in her mind, what am I going to do when I catch this damn thing? Didn't know what to do.
It was just a fun game.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like the Detroit Lions, they got, we're actually here. We're going to go to the Super Bowl, and they didn't really know what to do with it. Like when they were in that situation, it's like, you're up 17 points on the 49ers in the NFC Championship. You are the Detroit freaking Lions, and you are headed to a Super Bowl. And I think it was just like, it was too much for them. They just could not handle it. I mean, think about that, guys. That is one of the most, in terms of just the stigma and reputation, that is one of the biggest under-cheating franchises in pro sports, period. And they were on the cusp of a Super Bowl. And I think it was just emotionally too much for them to handle. Next time they get back, they'll be ready for it. They'll be ready for it if they get back. Hell, sometimes you never get back there. Anyway, so there you go. I see why Jared Goff is leading the poll. He was my pick too. And for a lot of people, they think, and isn't it crazy that Jared Goff is the guy people have faith in? At one point, people thought Jared Goff was a bust. And now Jared Goff has basically been to a Super Bowl with one team and went to an NFC title game with another team. Jared freaking Goff. So we can, you can say what you want about Jared Goff, but something about Jared Goff in the postseason, he performs in the postseason. And do you think Jared Goff is a better player than Dak? Or we think Dak's a better player than Jared Goff?
I think if you sit there,
exactly right. I'm not saying I know. I'm not saying
Yeah.
I know at all. I'm not saying I know. I'm just saying, look at what Jared Goff has accomplished in the postseason, and look at what Dak has accomplished in the postseason. I mean, Jared Goff has. I mean, you say, "Oh man, Jared Goff's been around better teams." Okay, you can say that, but it's the Detroit freaking Lions. Are we saying that now? Like, I love that the Detroit Lions now, like, they're the standard. It's like, well, the Cowboys did have 9 All-Pros on their team. I mean, you had more All-Pros than anybody in the playoffs.
I mean,
it's like you're a scrub team or anything.
No, I think you'd have to say it was the one advantage he would have is Ben Johnson is probably a better coordinator than Dak has had.
Yeah, no,
that's about it. That's about what you can throw at it, because he's had the white, we say CeeDee Lamb's a better wide receiver than Amon-Ra. And so even though,
I think so.
Amon-Ra was a really good really good wide receiver, if we say CeeDee Lamb's a little bit better, then that boosts him over.
They have a
Maybe
better offense though in Detroit. Just 'cause
they
I like
do.
Jahmyr Gibbs.
I like
and
Jahmyr Gibbs.
the
Sam Laporta is
backfield.
really good.
Sam Laporta's good. Yeah.
They
They're
have more
better.
options. I agree with that, but Dak's had options in his career too.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, I agree. It's just I'm not saying. Listen, I'm not saying I that Dak's better than Jared Goff or Jared Goff's better than Dak. I just think it's an interesting conversation because people they prioritize playoff wins. And they're like, man, the big knock on Dak is, man, Dak can't do it in the playoffs. And it's like, so is Jared Goff's better than because he can do it in the playoffs? And it's like, nobody's ready to make that commitment either. Like, well, slow down on that. Don't know if I'm ready to make that commitment. It's like, well, then what are we prioritizing here? Because obviously, we talked about it yesterday. The NFL doesn't give a damn about what you've done in the postseason. Those top 10 quarterbacks, I think their playoff record is 17-20. We established yesterday a combined 17-20 for the top 10 QBs. So it's not about they're not paying them based on playoff success and postseason success. They're paying them based on their kind of projected ceiling and upside and potential. And I guess it depends on what you value. I think right now Cowboys fans are valuing postseason wins. They want
I mean, I think if you looked at it just in the fact they're about the same age, and if you said take money out of the equation, would the Lions trade Goff for Prescott? I don't think they would. And if you said would the Cowboys trade Prescott for Goff, I think they'd listen to that call longer than the Lions would.
Oh. Yeah, maybe you got a good point there. Maybe they would listen to it. Yeah, and I got to think about that's a great way to present it. Who would be more interested? Like I said, Goff was brought there to be a bridge quarterback, and now has just won over the locker room and won the organization over in the franchise. But Dak was also never viewed as a franchise quarterback until the fit hit the shan, and then it was like, oh, this guy, rookie of the year, is pretty damn good. Ooh, I don't know where to go with that. I really don't. I just brought it up. I really don't. I couldn't tell you right now. I think I want to say Dak's right now better during the regular season for me, like overall, but man, Jared Goff, and maybe Jared Goff's just lucky, guys. I mean, he ends up with Sean McVay with the Rams, and then he ends up with Ben Johnson and the Detroit Lions. And right now, people say Ben Johnson is the best offensive play call that's not a head coach / play caller.
Yeah. So
basically, those are Andy Reid, your Kyle Shanahan, your Sean McVay, maybe Mike McDaniel, those kind of guys. But take those guys out of it. And I think a lot of people say he's better than Mike McCarthy, who's now a part of that group too. A lot of people say he's better than Mike McCarthy as a play caller. And he's ended up with him and Sean McVay. So it's just ended up with two really progressive systems. But it's unfair to say, well, it's just all the system. It's like, hey, he's not just a system quarterback. Not at this point. He's achieved more than just being a system QB. But man, the postseason success is amazing. To win playoff games for multiple franchises, when Dak's having a hard time just winning playoff games with one.
Yeah, with plenty of players.
Yes, plenty of talent, plenty of players. It's like I said, it really isn't like the Cowboys should be the Packers. The Packers are a good team, up and coming team. The Cowboys, based on talent, they were a better team, and they were at home. They had the advantages last year, and then couldn't beat the Green Bay Packers.
Let us know on the text line 512-447-3776.
Goff or Dak?
If you could make the trade, pull the trigger right now. You could trade Dak for Jared Goff, but you've got him under contract now for the next 4 years. That's your starting quarterback for the next 4 years. Do you make that trade? Let us know. I'm curious. I know there's some Dak haters that will, in a heartbeat, they'd say, I'll take a rusty cannon of worms over Dak Prescott.
Yeah, and Dak just turned 31, right? Was it a couple of days ago?
Yeah.
He just turned 31. Like I saw his birthday. I thought it'd be really cool if the Cowboys broke out the contract extension on his birthday. Surprise! What we were waiting on. Jared Goff's about to turn. He's gonna turn 30.
Yeah, he turned 30 yesterday.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yesterday.
Yesterday.
Right. Yeah, I knew I saw that somewhere. So yeah, so Jared Goff will turn 30 during this. So you got a year, that basically a year separation from him.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting conversation. Like I said, what do you value? Postseason success, or you value overall overall achievement, period. Because Dak may have him in that category because Dak had the rookie of the year, and then Dak's been, year after year been pretty consistent. Jared Goff has not been that consistent because that's why Sean McVay moved on from him. He wanted a quarterback with a higher ceiling because he thought he thought he had plateaued. He thought, okay, he's reached it as high as he can get. This is the highest he can reach towards his upside. So we're moving on. And then I think he actually proved Sean McVay wrong. By the way, that's one of those trades that worked out for everybody.
Yeah.
It really did. And I think he showed that he has a higher, if he is on a plateau, he has not reached it quite yet. And I think Sean McVay assumed that he did. Now the question with Dak is, has Dak plateaued postseason wise? Or is there another level to Dak? Because that's kind of what this question, I think, opens up to is there another level for Dak? Because we saw the other level from Jared Goff. He took it to another level. He did. And we saw Dak do it in the regular season. People want to see him do it in the postseason. All right, there you go. So the topic for the Big Fat Poll today, it's always a great conversation starter with my man, Patrick. We appreciate that. But first, let's get into these horn headlines, and then we'll come back and dive into the Stephen Jones sound a little bit. Stephen Jones somewhat making excuses, but he's giving you more insight about these contract negotiations for the Cowboys. But first, let's get updated, educated, and informed on all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the horn headlines.
All right, your horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros dropped the first game of their series against the Pirates on Monday, 5-3. The Astros pitching held strong on a day where starter Jake Bloss was a late scratch, pitching five perfect innings before allowing their first hit on a solo homer. But the back of the Astros bullpen gave up 4 runs in the final 2 innings, allowing the Pirates to pull off the win. Houston also finalized a trade, sending Jake Bloss, Joey Loperfido, and Will Wagner to Toronto for left-hander Yusei Kikuchi. The 33-year-old Kikuchi has a 4.75 ERA this season, but has thrown 130 strikeouts with only 30 walks. And the Rangers got a 6-3 victory over the Cardinals, with Nathan Eovaldi picking up his 8th win of the season. 5 different players picked up RBIs for the Rangers in a group effort, including a 2-run homer from Lowe to give the Rangers some much-needed insurance runs in the 7th. The Rangers also made a series of roster moves, including trading Michael Lorenzen to Kansas City for a minor leaguer Walter Pennington, and then activated third baseman Josh Young and Cody Bradford from the 60-day IL before placing John Gray on the 15-day IL. Max Scherzer will get the start for the Rangers tonight. And looking at our medal count in the Olympics right now, USA holding strong as the overall leader with 20 medals, 3 for gold, 8 silver, and 9 bronze. And that is your horn headlines.
Watching table tennis now. America versus USA versus Brazil. I gotta tell you, these ladies and the way they're playing, I couldn't keep up with. I mean, this is amazing. This just the hand-eye coordination is freaky. It almost looks like it's like something fake. Once they get these like rallies going back and forth, it is wild. So I'm pretty intrigued by table tennis right now. It can only happen during the Olympics. Speaking of table tennis, I was just talking, and this is kind of a random story. We were just talking about how I thought, at least based on my observation, that the athletes in the Olympics are getting a little bit older now. You got some older, because you got some of the sports that are changing too. And I think the Dream Team probably helps that because you got a lot of aging in veteran NBA players. But I saw a couple of stories that I thought were pretty interesting about table tennis, and some of your older players in the Olympics are actually table tennis players. I don't know if you've seen this, Patrick, but there's 2 of them. There's one Zing Ziying. She made her Olympics debut at 58 years old.
Woo!
Born in China, now representing Chile in table tennis because of an incredible journey. At 18, she expected to go to Olympics for her birth country, China. But then table tennis changed out the 2-sided paddles and her game was thrown off. Who knows this kind of inside information about table tennis? She never made the team and became frustrated. She retired from the game as a player at the age of 20. She retired at 20. Shortly after, she moved to Chile and started to be a table tennis coach. Who knew there was such an industry in table tennis? She moved to a different country to be a table tennis coach. And then in 2000, she decided to get a real job because table tennis coaching it didn't pay like it used to. And then she stepped away from the game. For 20 years, she did not play at all. Then in COVID, she bought a table because she was trapped inside. She was like, you know what? I'm trapped inside. I need something to do. She bought a table, started playing again with family, and she made a goal to make the 2024 Olympics representing Chile. And at the age of 58, she did it. What the hell? That is wild. That is wild. Yeah. So at 18, she was like one of China's top tennis players. And then her hopes were dashed. And she gave it up, ended up moving to Chile. And now she makes Olympic debut in Paris at 58 years old, ladies and gentlemen. And how about this? Another one. If I mispronounce these ladies' names, I apologize. Ni Shi-Lin. She is a tennis player from Luxembourg. She's 61 in the Olympics right now at 61 years old. There's got to be. I mean, what's the record for how old the oldest Olympians? These women have got to be coming close to it.
Yeah.
It says the full weight of her nation is on her shoulders. She knew that she would need to summon all of her experience to settle into the match. As it turns out, she had more than anyone in the building. That's because Ni, the Grand Duchess of Luxembourg table tennis, is 61 years old. When she made her international debut in 1979, before I was born, almost nobody in this year's Olympics field was born. Ni won her first world championship in 1983, and her first round opponent here was born in 1993. So her first round opponent was born in 1993, and she won her first world championship in 1983, and which makes her younger than Ni's son, which is another crazy stat. She retired and unretired before Michael Jordan. She did it again. In fact, she was in her prime before table tennis was even an Olympic sport. And these days, of course, now table tennis very popular, and she basically has double the age and experience of any of her other competitors in that sport. There you go. Boom. Random factoid about table tennis.
Yeah, I can tell you they're a little bit younger than the oldest. At least this is what I've quick look up. Is the oldest Olympian ever is Oscar Swan, who's from Sweden, and in the 1920 Summer Olympics, got a silver medal at 72 years old.
No. Doing what?
Shooting.
Okay. That's still pretty damn impressive at 71 to be shooting, but I guess shooting does make sense. Okay, there you go.
Shooting.
Because you can do don't they have they used to have archery and stuff like that? Do they still have that? Right? Like
yeah, they still have archery,
yeah. So I guess, stuff like that. Skilled stuff, I guess you could do. All right, so those ladies not even, I was wrong. There you go. You learned something new. Every day, not even close. Learned that 71 is the
72.
72. Sorry, 72.
So don't sell them short.
The record. Don't sell them short. At 72 years old. Wow, that's impressive. All right, there you go. Thank you, Patrick, for that. We appreciate it. All right, let's hear from Stephen Jones really quickly, and then next thing we'll go behind the Burn Orange curtain and talk some Texas football. Random Olympic detour. You're supposed to do that. It's Olympic time. We're gonna detour for the Olympics a lot. Okay. So let's get to this story. So Stephen Jones went on the ticket, and he went on 105 through the fan. Let's start with the 105 through the fan sound. And he was asked about, and it's something that we have discussed, is the holdup in the contract negotiation with CeeDee Lamb, is it guaranteed money? Is it the guaranteed money that's holding up the deal, or is it the average annual value of the deal? Average annual value is your yearly salary, annual salary, right? Does CeeDee Lamb want to be the highest paid receiver per year in the NFL, or is all he care about is getting the most guaranteed money out of the deal? What is the bigger issue, a bigger factor? Here is what Stephen Jones had to say.
And trade-off, obviously, cash flow can be very important to these guys. Guarantees very important. Obviously, how we structure it to work around our cap situation, knowing, hoping that the cap historically, has done this in terms of, going up every year. It's not always a given. I mean, we had the COVID year, and so not always a given, but you certainly try to structure things that give you, you ladder that out so that the cap situation can work for us. But, it's just a lot of moving parts to it, especially when you're talking about the type of numbers we're talking about for CD and Dak. It's, it's real money.
At the end, it's real money. Yeah.
It's
And
real money.
I think that was very telling at the end there, Patrick. It's real money. Like we said yesterday, guys, these players now are smart, and so are their agents. They don't care about the funny money in your deals anymore. They don't give a damn about that. What they want are signing bonuses, and they want guarantees. We talked about Jordan Love yesterday. He had, I believe, $75 million was his signing bonus. $155 million in total guarantees. Guys, that's cash, basically. That signing bonus got to be paid as soon as you put your name on that line. Justin Jefferson got 80-something million for a signing bonus. If you got 3 players now, they're going to ask for 70 to 80 million in a signing bonus, cash up front on hand. All right, then you got to have that. That's why he's like, it's cash. That's why I think he had that that response toward the end. Okay, so he was also asked about, the Cowboys. He was asked about signing these deals, the big 3. Is it somehow bad for the culture of the locker room? Is it bad for, as an example, set an example for other guys on the team that, hey, if they work hard, if they accomplish their dreams, become an all-pro, potentially the best at their position, will they be rewarded with the big contract? That's what everybody wants to know. Like, hey, man, if I do, achieve, ultimately outperform my contract, will I be rewarded and paid for it? And he was asked, is that a bad example? That you guys haven't paid these players top of the market money based on their performance? And the answer Stephen Jones gives, he initially addresses the chemistry, but then veers off in another direction. And I have a sneaky suspicion this is how contract negotiations go with the Cowboys, where they're like, hey, this is the dollar figure I want. And the Cowboys want to veer off and tell you about all the advantages there are to being a Dallas Cowboy and how that actually has monetary value and how that is something you should also consider in your overall decision. Here's Stephen Jones.
I mean, you want great chemistry. We think being a Cowboy has a lot of advantages, which we obviously are trying to sell to whether it's a Dak, whether it's a CD, whether it was Tony Romo, whether it was Jason Witten or Zach Martin or Tyron Smith. We coach them. Hey, Dallas is a low cost of living place. A lot of people like to move there because it is that way. There's no state income taxes. And then, of course, we do believe, the power of the brand and the star, that these guys can do better off the field, and they all have their deals. Some do them bigger and better than others, but, they got a chance to, in our opinion, their earning power off the fields, as big here in Dallas as it is anywhere.
Do agents share that opinion?
Well, they'll fight.
Okay.
They don't want to just give into it,
Yeah.
but they know it's reality.
Gotcha.
He's basically telling you that's part of our negotiations. Part of our pitch is, you want to be a Dallas Cowboy. There's so many advantages to you being a Cowboy. You should give us a discount, as a matter of fact, on this contract because we're helping you out in building your brand by you being a Dallas Cowboy. He's basically telling you that's part of the pitch. And they were like, do the agents go for that? And they're like, nah, not really.
No. I mean, they did 20 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
It's a free agent pitch. It's not a keep your
It
guys
is.
pitch. They know what Dallas is. And now
That's
you
true.
can tell them, well, if you go somewhere else, but if you start talking about them going somewhere else, they're like, cool, all right, maybe I'll go somewhere else. You're not supposed to bring up other places when you're trying to get a free agent signed. You're supposed to say, this is where you want to be. This is great.
Mm-hmm.
You know how great it is. Let's figure out the money and make this right. Instead of being like, well, you go over there and maybe you like it more.
You got it. It's a mystery. But no, yeah, I think that he's kind of revealing things without knowing that he's revealing it. That's definitely part of the Cowboys pitch. So that was what he said on the fan. He also went over to the ticket, 1310 a ticket, and spoke to them. And like I said, when you have to talk all day, it's hard to keep, recycling the same old BS. And so I think he started to reveal some things. That's why I want to get, Stephen Jones, different atmospheres with different people to see what he would reveal. So he was also asked about the ticket about paying your big 3, because essentially the Cowboys, and I talked about this, they're going to pay their big 3 if they all of them reportedly want top of the market money for their positions. Then you're going to pay your big 3 more money, more guaranteed money, more signing bonus money than any team in NFL history has ever paid their big 3. Ever. Period. Now it's a compliment to you because you got great players, but nobody's ever gonna. If all these guys want, if CD wants his 35 million a year like Justin Jefferson, and Dak gets his plus 60 plus mil a year, and Micah Parsons wants to be the highest paid non-quarterback in history of the NFL, then you'll be doing something nobody's ever done, which is paying your big three unprecedented record amount of money, guarantees, and signing bonus money. That's what he was asked about, and Stephen Jones. He seemed uncomfortable even thinking about it, but here's what Stephen Jones had to say.
Well, that's the discussions we're having with our three, and really our two right now. Micah's, 1 year behind CD in terms of where he is in the, in terms of his career. But no, we're having those discussions, and obviously we can do it, but it just may really limit, and you really got to draft well and develop well if you're going to go with the younger, less expensive guys, especially. Where that comes from is success in the draft and having these walk-in guys who can play. Certainly, we all saw Guyton running with the ones yesterday at left tackle. I mean, unfortunately, no one wants to lose a Hall of Famer in Tyron Smith, but, we had to make that tough call. You got to have guys who step up. We didn't want to lose Biotic. He was homegrown, and, we think a lot of him, but we had to make a tough decision there. Now BB's competing and with Hoffman, and I think they'll do a hell of a job. But the competition there will bring out the best in both of them, and I think they'll do a hell of a job replacing Biotic at the end of the day.
So that, and we talked about this too. If you are going to pay that big three that amount of money, and you don't necessarily know what the salary cap is going to be, you assume it's going to increase every year, like it does, but you don't know if you're going to have a massive increase in your salary cap. You must assume that the rest of your talent that is not a part of that big three, because they're taking up so much of your salary cap space, they got to be discounted talent. They all have to be outperforming their contract. It's the only way it's going to work. And the only players on your team that outperform the contracts really are your guys on your rookie deals, or the guys you're bringing in as mercenaries and you sign them to 1 year deals, short-term deals, your Eric Kendricks, those kind of guys. You need them to outperform their contracts, because there's no way ever that Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb or Mike Parsons are going to outperform their deal. They're just being paid as star players. But to get value, you need players to outperform their contracts. That's how you, as a negotiator, that's how you get value. And that's why the Cowboys, their last two classes, rookie classes, are huge. And they got nothing from the one 2 years ago with Mozzie Smith and the Schoonmaker, the tight end out of Michigan. And I love Marvin Overshawn, but he was hurt too. They need that group to contribute right away this season, and the rookies that they drafted this season. If not, Cowboys are going to be in a tough spot roster-wise, because they're going to have to pay the big three. I think we all assume it's going to happen when all the drama settles down and subsides. They're going to be paying the big three. And depending on what the salary cap gives you, you won't have a ton to work with building the rest of the roster. And nobody in NFL history has really had to deal with that much of their salary cap being taken up by just three players. Yeah, so we'll see. All right, and last cut here for Stephen Jones. I thought this was interesting because Stephen Jones was asked about, Dak's age, something that my man Patrick brought up in the top of the Big Fat Poll today. And he was basically, they're asking him, hey, with Dak's age being 31, compared to his peers and compared to other championship great quarterbacks in recent history, this is usually around the time where they either have won a Super Bowl already, or, this is the time where they start to ascend. All right around this age, early 30s. And if they don't do it by then, a lot of evidence suggests that they won't do it, that they have peaked, plateaued, hit their ceiling. Here is Stephen Jones when he counters it in his response by giving an example of a quarterback who did achieve championship level play later in their careers. And I'm not sure why he used this specific example.
Well, I mean, I'd say Matthew Stafford. It took him a long time. A homegrown guy right there from Highland Park, and he stepped up and got in the right situation and made the plays, and he was the reason they won a championship. And I think it's just getting the chemistry, the right team together at the right time, and certainly Matthew did that with the Rams after having a long career in Detroit of Not even winning 12 games from. I mean, he didn't win a lot of games there in Detroit, but Matthew Stafford's a champion. He's an elite quarterback, and he got on the right team at the right time with the right chemistry, and they won a championship.
He's right. That is a really good example of a quarterback achieving championship success late in their careers. But the Kim Kardashian, Nicki Minaj, Serena Williams size, Cardi B size, Megan Thee Stallion size, but is that he did it with another team. He did it with the Rams. He had to leave Detroit to do it. And so I don't know if he is being really, savvy here, or if he's is a Freudian slip. But is he essentially saying that Dak's got to go elsewhere to achieve that championship level success? So I really did not that I got the example that he gave, and that's a really good example. But that example was a quarterback who was traded to another team, and that's when he experienced success. And we heard Dak earlier this week bring up the fact that other great quarterbacks have had to leave their original team and continue their career and legacy. And now he's bringing up Matt Stafford, who's one of the best examples of that most recently, of a quarterback who had to do that. So I don't know why he brought up Matt Stafford. I'm sure there's another example, but Matt Stafford's the one that stood out to him.
He also brought up, again, the team where you go, well, you really just have to draft well. Well, I don't know if he knows what the Rams did, but they had a slogan about drafting.
That's
F them picks.
F them picks.
Yep. They trade away all their picks and traded to get proven players, which you guys aren't going to do either. Because you guys don't like doing trades because you're afraid you're going to lose the trade. You're afraid you're going to lose the negotiation because you're afraid you're going to lose anything. The only thing you do well is you draft, and you go, we draft well. We're not afraid about messing up a draft, so we think we're going to do that, and we have to do it. But if we're afraid we're going to do everything else wrong, so we're not going to do it. And we're just going to stay away from it because we could get screwed if we sign a free agent and pay him too much, or we could get fleeced by another general manager if we make a bad trade. So we're just going to draft players and re-sign our own guys, but we don't even want to re-sign our own guys now. So basically, we just want to draft players. We just want to draft, and that's how we're going to build a team.
When it's time to pay them, I don't know if we're not excited about paying our own guys.
We did too good. We did too good drafting.
It is kind of feel like it's like you should be proud to pay your guys and go, hey, this is because we do what we know what we do well. We draft really good players, and we got to pay them top of the market value because we develop really good players too. And so the examples that he gave were so interesting. Like I said, subconsciously, I wonder if he's even thinking about it. You brought up the Lions, who have been kind of the laughing stock of the NFC for decades. I used to play for them, so I know this. And yet the Lions were able to start over at quarterback and surpass you in the NFC, and have already made it to an NFC title game with Jared Goff as their quarterback. Do you understand the irony of that? They actually ended up surpassing you when they started over at quarterback already. And as Patrick pointed out, your fear of, if you're going to start over at quarterback, start over or upgrade. Hell, the Rams, you know what the Rams did? They upgraded their quarterback. They looked at Jared Goff and said, yeah, he's good, but he's plateaued. He's got a ceiling. And by the way, Sean McVay was wrong about that because he hadn't hit his ceiling yet. He's still ascending now with Detroit. But one thing Sean McVay was right about was he's not going to win it with us. He's not going to win it with us. I need a quarterback that is a Super Bowl caliber ceiling. And that's why he went out and upgraded and got Matt Stafford. So that's why I say I don't think the Cowboys study the NFL. I don't think they study it very well. They just it's just weird. They don't study it because I think if they studied, they would be ahead of the curve a lot of times on these issues. And that example really kind of shows you that Stephen Jones, I don't know if he was even aware of the Shakespearean irony of him using that Matt Stafford example. All right, let's come back. We'll get into some Sark sound. We got some Sark audio from Texas High School Coaches Association, and we'll also talk about the coordinators' availability today. All of that and more when we go behind the Burn-Ons curtain right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some Texas football conversation and go behind the burnt orange curtain. Longhorns will be starting practice tomorrow. They have coordinator availability for the media today. They only speak to the media twice a year, at the beginning of the season before training camp and at the end of the season. You get a chance to talk to Kyle Flood and get a chance to talk to Jeff Banks and PK as well. So I'll get into some questions I may have for the coordinators. But first, I want to play this audio from Steve Sarkisian. He was at the Texas High School Coaches Association, and he was asked about a few different topics. But I got a couple of pieces of audio here of him addressing the headset communication, number one, and his special assistants. Something else he has finalized, and I thought it was some interesting comments that he made. So first, let's hear the comments about the headset communication, because Sark has experience in the NFL using the headset communication. First time it'll be available at the college level for all schools, and this is something that Sark has talked about a lot, and I think during the preseason. He hasn't really stated it's going to be a huge advantage for him, but I think it's going to be a big advantage for Sark just because he's got experience in communicating via that headset in an actual game with a quarterback at the NFL level. So here's Sark talking about the headset communication and what kind of advantages it could bring for an offense.
Well, I think some of that varies to the style of offense. There's a lot of talk right now that the teams that go fast, that really want to go fast, that this is a distinct advantage for them because now you can talk directly to the quarterback. And I'm holding out on that opinion because the other 10 players still need to know what to do, right? And so, yes, I can talk to the quarterback, but how do I get the receivers and the linemen and everybody still knowing those plays? And so would it minimize some of the signaling maybe on offense? But I don't know necessarily that they're going to be able to go faster because they still have to communicate to all those people. I do think it is, and for a team like us who's very multiple personnel groupings, formations, motion shifts, sometimes we go fast, sometimes we huddle, sometimes we're somewhere in between. It does allow us to be a little bit more efficient to decide what tempo that we're going to operate in or what personnel grouping that we're going to. Why I like it, having spent some time in the NFL and calling plays in the NFL, is that you can really communicate with the quarterback, and sometimes just voice inflection from the coach helps the quarterback understand the importance of something in a play. It does allow you to give some subtle tips and reminders, and it maybe not always be for the quarterback. It may be for the running back or the right guard, whoever that is. But I also think there's a real challenge defensively, because just to think that one player on defense has a headset in, you still have to get, like I said, get that call to all 11 players on the field. And if a team's going with tempo, that's going to be difficult to do. So I just don't think we can solely rely on the helmet to, coach to player communication, that's the end all be all. We still have to have our mechanisms in place to communicate with all 11 players that are on the field, and whether that's signaling, whether that's the signals on field once the player gets that call. But that's probably the challenge, and it's going to be a little bit of a work in progress, because the college game is drastically different than the NFL. The NFL, everybody huddles, and until 2 minutes and guys start going no huddle. In college football, there's a lot more no huddle aspects to what teams do. And so the play caller is, especially defensively, is going to have to really be on point. Or is the team trying to go fast or not? And I think it's important that the play caller doesn't panic, that we show a lot of composure as a coaching staff to get our players the call in a timely fashion, but let's not be too quick to jump to a conclusion that they're necessarily going fast. And so there's layers to this thing that we work through in spring ball, but that we're going to have to continue to work through in training camp and really the first few weeks of the season.
All right, there's Sark breaking down the headset communication advantages, disadvantages on both sides of the ball. He also was asked about his special assistants, which he has now finalized his special assistants. And I've got my own theories about, why he brought these guys in. But here's Sark breaking down his reasoning for bringing in each of the three special assistants for this upcoming season.
When I look at openings, is can they make us better than we were? Right. And where are our needs and what type of impact might somebody have in our program? I'll start with Chris Gilbert. I hated it when he left. I understood why he left and going to North Texas. I understood all that, but I knew the type of impact that he had in our program and his relationship with the high school coaches, his relationship with the recruits and their families, his relationships with the current players on our roster. He has a really good eye for me, even in practice. I'll bounce things off of him post practice, post game, just kind of the mindset where we're at as a team. So I do lean into Coach Gilbert that way, and it's great having him back for sure. Scotty Hazelton, when you assess our season last year, one area where I think we all could agree where we can improve is in pass defense. And like I said, pass defense has layers to it. If you want to be a really good pass defensive team, you got to have the ability to affect the quarterback, sack the quarterback, and put pressure on the quarterback, make him uncomfortable. If you want to be really good in pass defense, you have to have enough schematic, variety, but yet be good at those schemes. And we needed that as a staff. And then you have to have the players and the personnel that can guard people and make plays on the ball and in tight coverage and things of that nature. I've always admired Scotty from a distance. I've known his history and his track record and his connection to Gus Bradley and Monty Kiffin and the Tampa 2 stuff. And then, his connection to getting involved in kind of the system that I knew at Alabama of a lot of the combo coverage stuff. And so to bring in a guy like that, that maybe can give us a little bit more variety coverage wise, that was big. And then bringing Bill Reese on board. I mean, just the expertise that he has. He's been doing it a long, long time. Coach Saban generally doesn't hire people that aren't good at what they do. And if they aren't good at what they do, they generally don't last but 1 year. And the fact that he was with Coach Saban more than 1 year, and when I lean into Coach Saban a lot, and when I got his recommendation on Bill, we had lost a couple people. I really felt like we are upgrading at that spot from an evaluation standpoint, not only the high school player evaluation, but potential portal evaluations, but then also evaluating our own roster. And where are we? And he's done it at the highest level in the NFL. He's obviously done it at a really high level at the college game with Notre Dame and with Alabama. So I think all three of those guys are going to be impactful for our program.
3 more.
All right, that is Coach Sark talking about the special assistants. I think he brought Scotty Hazelton in because he was a Michigan State defensive coordinator, and Texas has to play Michigan. And he was the defensive coordinator there for 2020, 21, 22, and 23. I think that's a guy that definitely, as a rival, he knows Michigan really well. So I think that's the reason. He just told you, Bill Reese, that's a nice little nugget that was a Nick Saban suggestion. So Nick Saban reference. Nick Saban makes you a recommendation. Yeah, you might want to take that one. And obviously him bringing in Chris Gilbert, just having the connections there in the DFW area, as I've talked about. The only metro area in the country producing NFL players at a higher rate than DFW is Atlanta. So you need somebody who's considered a made man and has got a lot of roots and contacts in DFW. And Chris Gilbert's got tons of that. All right, we come back. We'll get into off of the record here. Man, Taylor Swift is this popular. That may not be a more popular artist on the planet right now than Taylor Swift. Got another example of that. Also, some crazy, wacky stories, Olympic stories that we'll have in off the record as well. So we're jam-packed. Lots of that coming up next right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Lifetime Longhorn, Rod Babers here. What's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Let me tell you about a friend, Dr. Eckert, and his wonderful team. Dr. Yu, I owe him a huge debt of gratitude because my dental health and hygiene have never been better thanks to Dr. Eckert and his wonderful team. It doesn't matter what you need. Maybe it's general dentistry, maybe teeth whitening, dentures, porcelain crowns, veneers, dental implants, full mouth reconstruction, even root canal therapy, whatever it takes to ensure you're getting the best quality dental care available. That's what Dr. Eckert and his team are all about. I've been there for cleaning, for fillings. I actually had all of my wisdom teeth removed at one point because I went there for a checkup, and they're so thorough in their checkup. They'll make sure that you are well aware of everything that needs to be addressed as it relates to your dental health and dental hygiene. And that's why I'm eternally grateful to Dr. Eckert. So even if you haven't been to the dentist in a long time, which was the case for me, or if you go regularly, trust me, Dr. Eckert is the perfect place for you. When everybody asks me if I know a good dentist, I say, no, I don't know a good dentist. I know the best dentist, a great dentist, the best dentist in Austin, Dr. Greg Eckert. And right now, he has the ability to give you a brand new smile in just one day, permanently secured to your dental implants, no time spent without teeth. You'll get temporary fixtures first until they complete your permanent smile. And you're going to smile again, with confidence and eat freely without pain or discomfort. We're talking about a lifelike permanent solution. So if you've been told your teeth need to be replaced, don't freak out. Just call Dr. Eckert today. Learn about this revolutionary alternative to dentures. It's a complimentary consultation, so you got nothing to lose but so much to gain. So give them a call today, 512-345-3166. Dr. Eckert understands that a confident smile can truly change your life, and he wants to change your life for the better. So give him a call, 512-345-3166, or visit dreckert.com, DRUECKERT.com. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time for a little off the record. So how about this? Paris spent $1.5 billion to clean up the Seine River for the Olympics, but there's been a lot of rain recently in Paris this past weekend, and it swept millions of gallons of sewage into the Seine River. Yeah, sewage. And the triathlon swim training has been canceled for the second day in a row due to and this was yesterday, due to E. coli levels. I don't know what it is today. Got to go check it, but that's not good. Not good. Not good at all. Didn't we have this issue There was another Olympics recently where that was the issue. It was the water. I don't know if it was maybe the one before Tokyo. Who was that? Was that Rio? Was that?
Yeah, maybe. I remember
I
that.
think
I
it was
remember it was a
Rio.
problem
You remember
somewhere.
this?
Yeah.
You remember this? It was, I don't know what body of water it was, but it was like it was obviously there was some toxic chemicals, and it was basically pollution. That is more and more we're dealing with this because pollution is a big problem in our world, and I think that's basically what they're dealing with. So all these bodies of water near these major cities, right? These major metropolitan areas. Well, of course, I mean they're dealing with sewage issues and dealing with pollution. So I think that's what you're doing. So yeah, that is literally that's an issue right there. So that's a off the record story for the Olympics. We'll keep an eye on that one. But how about this story from this is about Taylor Swift and her popularity. This is from Germany. So this is a story about the Eras tour that she has been conducting. And I mean, I want to say she made like $1 billion just off the tour alone. So based on this report, and apparently she was performing on basically at a concert in Germany, and people gathered on the hillside because apparently on the hillside, you could watch it. I guess you could also see from a nearby hillside of this venue. You could also see the concert. And they said an estimated 50,000 people gathered on a hillside in Germany to watch the Taylor Swift concert outside the stadium. Like, who else can do that? Who else can bring those kind of people, like that kind of
Like
foot traffic to anything?
sell out everything, and then have another group of people.
50,000 overflow.
Yeah.
Like Texas football does that. Like that's what.
Yeah.
That's what like Michigan football would do that. Not one like. So it was a 74,000 capacity stadium. Sold that out, and the reports are 50,000 people just hung out on the hillside next to the stadium because you can kind of see and then you can hear. Wow. I just think there's nobody even close to Taylor Swift's popularity right now on the planet, is there? Anybody like that? I mean, anything. I guess presidents. I mean, that's what you say about world leaders that can be that popular. And I don't even know if world leaders are that popular these days. I mean, I'm just saying. I don't know if they're that. She is. That's crazy. That's unbelievable. So, once again, Taylor Swift is the queen of pop, but she's the queen of a whole lot more these days too. And Travis Kelce, yeah, he still ain't put a ring on it. How long before they get engaged? I'm gonna say because Travis Kelce close to retirement. He's talking about retirement because he's with her. She's talking about having a family, and because she is getting close to that age, and now she's already made herself a billionaire. So I'm gonna say end of the season. My timeline would be. I mean, if they win the Super Bowl, he might do it at the Super Bowl. He could be that fly. But I'd say, I want to say by, what is Valentine's Day? I'm going to say by March of 2025, they're engaged.
I'll say by March 2025, they're engaged, or by March 2026, a whole Travis Kelce album.
No. Will he be featured on like a video or something?
No, I mean like she breaks
you mean the breakup album?
Yeah.
She's famous for that. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be a good one. That's gonna be hot. I mean, I'm gonna have to listen to that one to see some we can pick up on the shady details of their relationship, but she's famous for that. But this one might be, I don't know. We'll see. This one might be a one that sticks around. I don't know has anybody proposed to her yet?
I have no idea. No idea.
I don't know that.
I don't keep up with
Taylor
Swift that close.
I know she dates a lot of like celebrity stars. I don't know if they've proposed to her yet. So I wonder if Travis Kelce's thinking about that. Like, why not? What you doing? Travis? What you doing? You ain't doing nothing. You ain't doing nothing. You ain't doing nothing. You about to retire from football. Might as well marry Taylor Swift, put a bun in the oven. Y'all be divorced in 4 or 5 years. But who cares? Y'all got enough money to support a beautiful kid and all that kind of stuff. So why not just do it? Go ahead, Travis. Cement yourself in pop culture history.
Yeah, just wait to get divorced until you're retired, and then you can get alimony from her.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, you're right about that. That's legit.
That's the way to
he
do
ain't
it.
even close to making what she made.
Well, especially once he retires.
they'll sign a prenup though. I mean, they got to.
Yeah, they
You got
probably.
that kind of money. You got that kind of money. You got to sign a prenup. I mean, that's just y'all got to sign a prenup. It's too messy without one. Got to have the prenup, please. All right, please have the prenup, please. Well, Travis shouldn't be trying to sign it, but trust me, Taylor, she will not get married without signing a prenup. All right, we come back. We'll get into some NFL discussion. We'll hear from Mike Zimmer. He went and talked to the guys over at 105 through the Fan. We'll hear from Mike Zimmer about that Cowboys defense. I think we're underselling that Cowboys defense. Speaking of defense, there's a Texans defender who I think could end up being one of the elite defenders at his position in all of the NFL, especially if he picked up where he left off last season. We'll get into that. We got Raj Rant. We'll talk about a position that's having a bit of a renaissance in the NFL. So heavy NFL coming up next segment. Don't go anywhere. We're loaded right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday. That's when my man Patrick plays jams that reached the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. Oh yeah, and baby got back. Always an easy choice if you ever are stuck. Karaoke. Most karaoke places have this. Just say heads up, because it's like so you ain't gotta sing at all your karaoke. They have it because it's such a crowd pleaser.
Yeah.
So just say heads up.
No,
Yeah,
I always,
can always
if I'm
go
going
to
to do it, I'm going to do tequila. Tramps.
Oh, that is good. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah,
Nice and easy.
While you need a little tequila when you
Yeah,
karaoke.
I mean,
think that also
but
helps.
the lyrics are tequila.
Yeah,
That's
tequila.
it.
Yeah,
You're good.
no, yeah. No, exactly. So it's simple, and for some reason, what I would say of all of the hip hop songs that are out there, very few of them that I think most people know all the lyrics to the song.
Yeah.
This is one of those songs, whether you're white, black, Asian, Hispanic, this is one of those few songs where most people know most of the lyrics. I don't even it's weird. People go if you play that song where people start singing along to it, it's amazing how many people actually know the lyrics to the song and not just acting like they know the lyrics of the song, like actually know it.
Yeah.
Baby Got Back, because it's just it almost feels like a Weird Al Yankovic kind of masterpiece, just from the way it is. But it's just one of those really popular jams, and I've said it actually kicked off in hip hop. It did kick, and now more so than any other genre. It basically hip hop celebrates the bootylicious badonkadonk, right? It celebrates, the BBL, right? The Brazilian butt lift, like that's part of the hip hop culture. Other genres of music have talked about women's butts before and how great they are and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not saying it's never happened. I'm saying as a genre overall, I would say 30 to 50% of the hip hop songs out there in some way are gonna reference butts and booties in some way. So it's just become like a genre thing. And I want to say I'll give Sir Mix a lot of credit with that. Like before then, I don't know. I mean, hip hop has been sexualized, but it's sexualized to the point where it's obvious that hip hop is more about the butt than the breasts. Like I rarely hear any reference to boobs in hip hop. When's the last time you heard somebody like, yeah, look at them nice big boobs? Like, no, nobody hip hop talks about that. Now, hip hop is all about, no, look at the booty. The booty is what it's all about. And you say there are some men who prefer the butt, some men prefer the breasts. I don't even know. Listen, they're both awesome. All right. I don't even know why we need to pick. But if you have a preference, hip hop's preference is booty. Period. Like, I don't hear any songs talking about anything else. It's all about the booty. Like, what's the last time you heard a song? I'm surely a hip hop song. It's actually a very sexualized genre. Why don't they talk about like breasts more?
I don't know. It feels like it's a weird song too. I don't know how you.
I'm just saying. But you realize hip hop is very sexualized, right? Always references about women in some way. But when they make a physical reference, it's usually a booty reference more so than a breast reference.
It is, but I'm trying to think of like what he would even. I'm sure they exist, and I just can't.
It just sounds too silly. Like it's just why is the booty more serious than
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it feels creepier. I don't know.
It is, but you really, I'm just saying, like when you think about hip hop, it's like, yeah, they do talk about booties. Like nobody's talking about like how great voluptuous her breasts are. No, nobody gets into that.
Yeah,
That's
nothing rhymes with voluptuous.
Yeah, maybe it's maybe it is. Maybe it's a rhyming thing. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. Anyway, I got inspired by Patrick. And Top of the Charts Tuesday, also inspired by his topic for the Big Fat Poll today. Go check it out. It is on the X account at the Horn ATX. Patrick, what is the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day?
The Big Fat Poll of the day: which quarterback 30 or above is most likely to win a Super Bowl next? We are putting Jared Goff in there. He turns 30 during the season, and that means he is far and away the leader at 57% of the vote. Dak coming in second at 21% of the vote, and then splitting 10%, Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr. Not a lot of love for Kirk Cousins there. And we asked the people on the text line earlier. You can text in 512-447-3776 because Rod brought up if who is a better quarterback, Jared Goff or Dak Prescott. They're about a year in difference. Dak's about a year older. Mm-hmm. But I said, what would you do if you had to make a trade? If the Lions called the Cowboys called the Lions and said, do you want to trade quarterbacks? Would you make that trade if you're the Cowboys? Would you make the trade and say, sure, we'll take Jared Goff? No problem. We've had split. Some people saying no. Someone said absolutely not. I keep Dak. And then we get some others. Someone said, I'd want a combo, Dak and Lamb for Goff and St. Brown. That's that's someone who just says, I hate all the Cowboys. Get rid of them all. We want new players.
But if you kept CD and Jared Goff had CD, I really do think he'd be okay. Like he'd be just fine.
Yeah.
I mean, but also the Ben Johnson thing too. Like Mike McCarthy's system is tailored for Dak. I don't know how that translates with Jared Goff too. No, my point was just that Jared Goff, he's had the postseason success that Dak covets, and I think Dak has the consistency really that Jared Goff covets. Think about it, Jared Goff has been considered a bust at one point. And then Sean McVay, after winning the Super Bowl, gave up on him. And he was considered then a throwaway bridge quarterback, was a bridge quarterback for a while, and now is a franchise quarterback again. Like, not a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL have taken that kind of route to get where they are, where they were once the number 1 overall pick, so considered the prince that was promised, then became a bust, then was essentially resuscitated by a quarterback guru in Sean McVay. So became a franchise quarterback, then went to a Super Bowl. Then that same coach decided, nope, you're not good enough. You've plateaued. I'm trading you. Then it been a trade piece, then considered a bridge quarterback by Detroit until we figure out what are we going to do at quarterback.
Yeah.
Then they say, hey, it got something special. Now you're a franchise quarterback. And it's just, that's a lot for a young QB, right? He's not even 30 yet.
Yeah.
And we just haven't had a quarterback take that kind of route, I don't think.
No, he was a bridge quarterback until you do bad enough that we'll draft another quarterback with one of these high picks because you're going to be so bad. And then he just.
Yeah, you're right. And he wasn't bad.
No. And the Rams didn't get bad.
Yeah, you're right. That's a great point. He was only going to be considered a bridge because everybody assumed they're going to be bad, mediocre, and then they'll draft their quarterback. You're right. He never allowed them to be bad. Well, he and Coach Campbell.
We got this crazy coach in Dan Campbell. Nothing's going to this inexperienced offensive coordinator.
Yeah, that's a good point too. We thought Dan Campbell was going to crash. He was like, it's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fun to watch, but this dude's going to crash and burn. And he did not. He thrived. He learned how to fly. That's a great point. That's true. I think because considering we at one point we had in our mind that Goff was a bust, and then we watched Campbell talk about biting kneecaps and stuff on his first press conference. We went, okay. And the Detroit Lions culture as an organization, we went, oh, hell no. There's no way these three things the confluence is going to come together and ultimately be a success. No. One of those three or two of the three will drag the other down. One of them may be successful, but not all three. And all three have thrived.
No, and then Ben Johnson stays. He had head coaching jobs. Yeah. I mean, we know Washington was in the air to come get him, to sign him to be the next head coach of the Commanders. And he signed a new deal with the Lions and agreed to stay with the Lions while they were flying to Detroit.
Yeah, you're right about that. That's true. Yeah, I forgot all about that. And that says a lot about Dan Campbell and the culture there.
Yeah.
He wanted to be there.
It's amazing what happens when you hire football people to run stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really amazing what happens when you stop just letting people who are good at making money make all the decisions and you hire football people. It's crazy. I don't know what other team should probably do that, but just saying it's crazy when that happens.
Hey, the Cowboys have done it before. Remember? And it worked out for them.
Well,
they hired Jimmy Johnson, football guy, and they hired Bill Parcells, football guy. But Jerry Jones wanted the credit. And that's part of the issue. He knows how to win. He knows. He's done it twice. He knows how to get close to a Super Bowl and get to a Super Bowl and win one. He knows exactly what he needs to do, guys. The ultimate irony is he won't do it because he won't get the credit. And he wants the credit on top of getting the Super Bowl and everything. And the football gods have told him, Jerry, we're not going to give you both. You can only have one. You've been pretty blessed in this life, but we're not going to give you a Super Bowl, and it's because Jerry Jones was the mastermind behind it. Yeah. It ain't happening. There's some things in this life you ain't going to get, Jerry. And Jerry, until I think to the grave, I think he, even though he knows how to do it, like you said, by hiring a football guy, if he can't get the credit, I think he's willing to go down with the ship and pretty much not win. And I have the Cowboys continue to reach this ceiling, which is the divisional round, because they can't get past. That's as far as mastermind Jerry can take you. Divisional round. That's it did after, that's basically as far as he can kind of get you.
That's when he runs out of bounds doing the option play?
I think that's about it.
That's when he runs out of bounds.
That's when the sideline, yes. It surprises you. Ooh, sideline.
Oh. They make this shorter
yardage. Yeah, exactly. So no, that's why I say that's what's sad about Jerry, is that Jerry's done it. He knows how to do it. He just won't do it. Okay, good conversation there for the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. Let's get the Horn headlines here quickly. Let's get updated, educated, and informed on all the top stories today. Then we'll come back and hear from Cowboys defensive coordinator. That's a football guy, Mike Zimmer. But first, the Horn headlines with Patrick Davis.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, the Astros dropped the first game of their series against the Pirates on Monday 5-3. The Astros pitching held strong on a day where starter Jake Bloss was a late scratch, pitching 5 perfect innings before allowing their first hit on a solo homer. But the back of the Astros bullpen gave up 4 runs in the final 2 innings, allowing the Pirates to pull off the win. Houston also finalized a trade, sending Jake Bloss, Joey Loperfido, and Will Wagner to Toronto for left-hander UC Kikuchi. The 33-year-old Kikuchi has a 4.75 ERA this season, but has thrown 130 strikeouts with only 30 walks. And the Rangers got a 6-3 victory over the Cardinals, with Nathan Eovaldi picking up his 8th win of the season. 5 different players picked up RBIs for the Rangers in a group effort, including a 2-run homer from Lowe to give the Rangers some needed insurance runs in the 7th. The Rangers also made a series of roster moves, including trading Michael Lorenzen to Kansas City for minor leaguer left-hander Walter Pennington, and then activated third baseman Josh Young and Cody Bradford from the 60-day IL before placing John Gray on the 15-day IL. Max Scherzer will get the start for the Rangers tonight. And looking over at your current medal count in the Olympics, USA still taking the total lead with 20 total medals, 3 gold, 8 silver, and 9 bronze for the USA. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right. Thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. Let's get to some of this audio from Mike Zimmer. He was on with the Fan earlier this week. I believe it might have been yesterday, actually. That he was on with those guys. And I thought he brought up a lot of interesting topics. Hadn't heard a lot from Mike Zimmer since he joined the Dallas Cowboys. It's our first chance to really hear him open up about how he's going to choose to apply his scheme with this talent. What's his philosophy now? Has he changed his philosophy since the last time he was a defensive coordinator and calling plays from when he was a head coach there in Minnesota? So the first question involved, Zimmer describing how he's going to build his specific system, coming in with his core principles. How do you mold that around the talent, or do you just look at the talent and let the talent kind of dictate where you're going to take the scheme and the system? Here's what Mike Zimmer had to say.
Yeah, it doesn't really work that way. Usually you have your principles and the way that you do things, and then, you start to take a look at the players and see what their strengths are and their weaknesses and how you can kind of fit them into different places. Quite honestly, I've been very, very impressed with this group of defensive players. They've been trying to do what we're asking them to do. We're asking them to do some different things. We're asking them to change up some of the ideas that they've done in the past, and but they've seemed to be really working hard at it. So I've been very impressed.
All right, there's Zim talking about his system and the players so far, how they fit into it. He also was asked about, since a lot of people consider his system to be more traditional, it's not considered a very progressive system, but it's still a system that has adaptability kind of baked in it. But he was asked about how progressive his system is, because he is a guy that's considered more traditional. If that's the case, can your system adapt? How quickly can it adapt to the modern concepts of football? Here's what Zimmer had to say.
I think it's always a chess game. The offenses are always trying to figure out one better way to against the defense, and vice versa too. And so it always kind of goes around and round cyclically. I used to say, there used to be the wishbone, and now it's then it's the run and shoot, and then it comes back to the zone reads, which is a possibility of a variation of really the option game. So I think it all kind of evolves, and you just got to keep evolving. And we've got a lot of smart coaches in the room with us, and so I think that's been good.
All right, that's Zim talking about how progressive and his defense is to the modern offenses. This is my favorite question probably of the interview, when he was asked about what concepts, what plays, what modern offensive ideas give him trouble. Which ones does he find difficult to defend as a defensive coordinator? Listen to what Zim had to say.
Yeah, when one of the things is, all these jet motions and things, because typically defenses are built on either a 2-by-2 formation or 3-by-1 formation, and when they're running and you're not able to really make the checks to 2-by-2 or 3-by-1, now they're getting you to play a 2-by-2 formation, but they're really in a 3-by-1 formation. So that's been difficult. Sometimes you get nickelbacks playing linebacker and linebackers playing nickel, things like that because of those things, unless you're playing all man to man, and then they just crack in, the guy chasing the guy. The other thing, this outside motion that some of the teams are doing now with the real fast, so they kind of get a running head start, almost like Canadian Football League,
Yeah.
So, some of those things that are causing some issues.
There you go. And my suggestion for Sark has been what? Increase your pre-snap motion rates. You got Zimmer, one of the best defensive minds in the league, telling you, oh man, it's hell on us. And I love that he talked about the numbers. I've always told you guys, at its most rudimentary form, football is just a numbers game. You're trying to win the numbers battle, either on each side of the formation, in the box, as opposed to, in the passing game. The RPO is all numbers game. If you have the numbers advantage in the box, you hand it off. If you don't have the numbers advantage in the box, you're going to throw it, because you can't have the numbers advantage both places. You can only have the numbers advantage simultaneously in one place, unless you got a freakish defender who demands a double team, and then you can even out the numbers or flip the numbers advantage. But if you have the numbers advantage in the box, that means you're losing it on the outside. If you have the numbers advantage in the passing game on the outside, the back end, that means you're losing it in the box. Like I said, unless you got some freakish Aaron Donald, freakish figure Chris Jones who demands a double team on every play. Those kind of guys can even out your numbers advantage. You can play with a lighter box. And the reason he brought up the how basically they can flip the numbers on you. I mean, that guy can go from one side of the formation to the other and immediately give the numbers advantage to one side, or the leverage to one side or the other, depending on how you want to attack it. And defense is built on rules. There are rules that bind the structural integrity of the defense, and the rules change based on strength and weakness of the formation. So strong side and weak side based on where more receivers are on one side of the formation. So if you got this guy going from a 2-by-1 to a 3-by-1 back and forth to the formation, I'm constantly on defense having to change the rules every time he goes back and forth. The rules change. I may bump the coverage. I may rock and roll it. I may have to follow him all the way across the formation, but it constantly changes. And when they do multiple shifts, and when he does a yo-yo motion or an orbit return motion, guys, you're literally changing the rules of the defense at the same time simultaneously. And what if they snap it while he's on the move? And that's what he's talking about at the end. They snap it while he's already running. And so while I'm changing the rules, I also have to react real time while the rules of my defense have changed, or the rules of my leverage or technique has changed. And then on top of that, I got to defend this guy real time. I played Canadian League football. When that guy comes with that running head start from 10 yards away, if it's an elite player, there's no way you can cover it. If it's an elite player, it's impossible to cover. And that's the NFL. That's NFL's version of that. That's why you call it like the Canadian League football thing. So Sark should use more pre-snap motion. By the way, Sark's around 50 to 55%, somewhere in there. Hell, Miami Dolphins 82%. San Francisco 75%. The Rams 70%. Green Bay 64%. Kansas City is around 64%. Detroit's at 62%. You notice a theme? Best offenses in the NFL, all way above 60% pre-snap motion rate. Sark should be there this year. And he's really good at snaps, at targets to motion. Last season, Texas, 10 yards per attempt when you targeted a man who was in motion prior to the snap. At the time of the snap, explosive play rate of 23%, and your completion percentage last 3 years, 80%, 81%, 78%. Targeting players in motion. Should use it more. Getting back to it. Here's Mike Zimmer when he was asked about analytics, right? Are you're a guy that goes with your gut? Listen to your gut, listen to your instincts as a coach, or you listen to the numbers. You got the green binder like Tom Herman used to have. Green folder, green binder. Here is what Mike Zimmer had to say.
Honestly, there's a deal that I've always said, when I sit down and I watch film and I'm sitting there watching 1st and 10, 2nd and 5, second and 6-9, second and 10 plus. To me, that's all analytics. I'm sitting there. I'm going to do all the analytics with it. I think there's a time and place for that. I do think that, it's based on numbers and numbers only. They don't know who's playing, who's hurt, the wind conditions, the weather conditions, how you've practiced during the week and things like that. So, it's another tool, but it's just, I don't know.
Do you find it's more useful as a head coach than as a coordinator?
That's
like in terms of game management situations.
Yeah, I guess, but at the end of the day, you still have to pull the trigger. What you think, is it 4th and 1? One time I was in Minnesota, I went for it on 4th and 1 on my own 30-yard line or something, and we ran a quarterback sneak and didn't get it, and so I'm thinking, man, you're a dummy. But luckily we got an interception on the next play and they bailed me out. But it just if it works, it's great. If it doesn't, you're not too smart.
All right, that's him talking about analytics. So healthy mix of both. I think that's probably the best way to go and the best answer to give. He was also asked about his coverage philosophy, and this was an interesting one too. Dan Quinn built his defensive philosophy on risk taking and gambling. He was a riverboat gambler for the most part, and he wanted his DBs to also take chances on the football, just like he did. Basically, he was gambling, and he was always trying to get sacks, negative plays, tackles for loss, or takeaways. And by the way, they led the NFL in takeaways over the 3-year span that he was with the Cowboys. They had 93 takeaways. Nobody in the NFL had more. So his system worked. And he also was top 5 in the NFL in pressures year after year. So the system did work. And that Cowboys defense was a top 5, top 10 defense under Dan Quinn. But it did have there were some vulnerabilities. All right, there were some weaknesses, and one of them was, the Cowboys would take a lot of chances, and when they didn't cash in, they would give up some big plays, whether it be in the running game or whether it be in the passing game. They would give up some big plays, and I think a lot of that was they wanted their corners to take chances. They wanted them to jump routes. They wanted them to undercut routes every now and then. They wanted them to bait quarterbacks, but that's why you've had Deron Bland and you had Trevon Diggs both be NFL interception leaders, and also guys who made all pro the last couple of years. So that's, you gotta give and take a little bit. Here is Mike Zimmer talking about how his coverage philosophy is very different. That he's not really the gambler that Dan Quinn was, and probably doesn't want his corners to be either.
I've always said there's an element of denying your person the ball. So if I'm covering you tight enough, the ball's going somewhere else, which makes the quarterback pull the ball down, and opportunity for more sacks, quarterback hits and fumbles and things like that. So obviously we're going to be aggressive on the outside, but Parcells used to have a saying, you get beat by giving up big plays, sacks, turnovers, things like that, penalties. So and he used to always say, hey, you're going to win half the games, you don't beat yourself. You go out there and you play good, solid, fundamental football. You're going to win half your games. And then what you do in the other half is when you got to go make some plays. So I don't know if I answered your question. Obviously, we always love to get turnovers, sure. But we want to be fundamentally sound too.
Yeah. So, still want them to have their ball hogging mentality, but do it from a more judicious approach, not being so reckless with it. I think Dan Quinn, he wanted you to take as many chances as you wanted, and you had free reign to do so. I don't think Zimmer's going to give them that free reign to just take chances when they want to and all be forgiven. It's all forgiven in Dan Quinn's system because he knows, well, yeah, you got beat that time, but the next time you're going to get a pick. Zimmer doesn't want that at all. He's all about structural integrity of the defense. All right, last cut here from Zim. Then we'll get to the break. So he was asked, of course, about Micah and how he's going to come up with the plan to utilize and weaponize Micah. What do you do? Is it or is this something that you are talking to Micah about? Is it something that you want Micah's input on, or is this something you already have a plan for? Here's what Zimmer had to say.
Well, we've sat down, like every morning we sit down and we come in there and we talk about things. And, he's a very, very smart guy. He's brilliant. And he has some good ideas. And if they're good ideas, we'll implement them. And, when you have a puzzle piece like him who can do so many different things, we're going to try to not allow the offense to know where he is all the time. And I think that's a big part of kind of what he's saying. So it's been great, sitting down with him, getting to know him. And so, we're excited to go from there.
All right, there you go. That's Mike Zimmer on 105 through the Fan talking about that Cowboys defense. I do think we're underselling the Cowboys defense. I mean, they're a top 5 unit under Dan Quinn. No reason to think they can't be around their top 5, top 10 again. You still have most of the pieces, the most critical pieces still there for the Cowboys on that side of the ball. All right, we come back. We'll talk Texans because we haven't talked to Texans. I'll tell you who's standing out in training camp and who may be a game changer for them, a force multiplier on the defensive side of the ball. We'll also dive into this position having a bit of a renaissance in the NFL, and we'll dive into a little bit later on who said that. So still got a couple of segments left in the show. Don't go anywhere. Coming right back at you. This is the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into Rod's rant of the day. A couple of things I want to bring up here, NFL related. We talked a lot of Cowboys, so I want to get into some Texans Nuggets. I've been seeing that Derek Stingley has been having a hell of a camp. I haven't really gotten into it yet, but all the reports that I've seen is that of all the players, he may be having the best camp on defense of any Texas player. He had an interception by CJ Stroud. I usually don't count the interceptions in the practices and training camp, but he did have an interception of CJ Stroud yesterday. And it started making me think about the late second half of the season last year, like basically week 11 and on, and how well Derek Stingley played. He struggled a little bit early on last season, and really even before that. I think before that he dealt with a lot of injuries. He was just inconsistent as a player, but something happened. The light went off for him the second half of last season. He actually led the NFL in interceptions and pass deflections over the second half of last season, weeks 11 through 18. He had 13 pass deflections and 5 interceptions. He only played in 11 of his first 25 NFL games, dealing with injuries and trying to get back and be, consistent. But nobody was more productive, arguably, at the cornerback position in the second half of the season. They even have a thing they call the ball hawk rate. And ball hawk rate. Derek Stingley led all cornerbacks last season in ball hawk rate, which tracks whether a defender makes a play on the ball or not. It seems pretty self-explanatory, but he made a ton of plays on the football. And like I said, most of that came in that second half of the season. And it didn't in the playoffs. It actually, I think he got even better in the playoffs because they were shadowing him, or allowing him to shadow, I should say, allowing him to shadow the best receiver on the opposing team during the playoffs. They weren't doing that as much in the regular season. I think they had so much confidence in the way that he was playing. They allowed him just to go shadow Amari Cooper. Now, Amari Cooper, they shadowed him for a lot of plays in that playoff game. He aligned across from Amari Cooper on 35 of 42 routes before the Texans sent in their reserves because they were beating him that bad. That's like 83% or something like that. Stingley allowed just 1 reception for 6 yards on those targets, on 3 targets, including tight window targets. And he was really good in that playoff game against him. And even in going back to the regular season, Amari Cooper, he gained 265 yards and 2 touchdowns in that Week 16 matchup against the Texans. He just honestly eviscerated that secondary. And that, I think, was why they wanted him to shadow Amari Cooper in the playoff game. That was their big adjustment. And it was a hell of an adjustment. And when they played Baltimore, and they got beat by Baltimore, but he lined up against Zay Flowers, I believe, and shadowed him, I believe, like on 85% of those routes. And he surrendered just 2 receptions for 22 yards on 3 targets. To Zay Flowers, who's a hell of a receiver for Baltimore and kind of was on his way to potentially being their number 1 guy. So she's shadowing top receivers, and he's basically making plays on the ball as well as any cornerback in the league. At least he was at the end of last season. And I think he's going to pick up right where he left off. On the season totally, he allowed 26 receptions, 48 targets, 61 yards after the catch, only 395 yards, so not many yards, 14 PBUs, 5 interceptions. He did allow 5 touchdowns, but he's making as many plays as he's given up, if not more. And he had a opposing passer rating of 76.6 when they targeted Derek Stingley. So, and he's, like I said, if he picks up where he left off last season, and they are treating him like a shutdown corner, which is, like I said, he was in the realm of being that last season, late in the season. Man, he could end up being a guy potentially that could be at least competing to be an All-Pro or in that conversation if he has a season like that. But he's got to stay healthy. Something he hadn't done really most of his career at the college and the pro level. He's been hurt. Remember LSU, he had that great freshman season, and then after that, he had injuries out damn near every year after that. And then to start his career with the Texans, dealt with a ton of injuries, getting back. But now, I'm telling you, watch him. There's nobody more consistent right now in training camp on defense than Derek Stingley. So Texans fans should feel good about that. Also, I like the fact they're moving Jalen Petrie to nickel or back to nickel. That's where he won Defensive Player of the Year in the Big 12, was at nickel. Dynamic player, can use his instincts. He's very instinctual. I think, I think he's a player that could play. I mean, he's great at safety, but I think at nickel, he'll thrive even more because I think he's comfortable in that chaos. Everything happens faster at nickel. At safety, you have a little bit of time for things to develop, and you have a little bit of time to process things. And for him, hell, man, that may be a detriment to him because he's such an instinctive player that he really operates really well when it's just muscle memory. Then he doesn't have to think. He's a guy I'm sure that can be a good football investigator, just processing all the clues that are given to him. But he also, I think, can just operate as on instinct alone and operating on muscle memory and operating as an agent of chaos at the nickel position, which in the Big 12, he was as good as any nickel that really I'd ever seen in the Big 12. I mean, he was really, really good. How does he win Defensive Player of the Year? Just playing the slot corner. Okay, there you go. That's some Texans discussion. Let's talk about the position that's having a bit of a renaissance in the NFL, and it's the tight end position. In 2023, rookie tight ends combined to catch 341 passes on 469 targets. That was the highest totals ever at the position for an incoming rookie class. Sam Laporta and Dalton Kincaid, you're talking about 86 and 73 just for themselves alone. So those are high volume tight ends. And it was the first time that you had two rookie tight ends go over the 70 reception mark in the same season. That hadn't happened before. Those two rookies also and two other players in their second season, Trey McBride, Jake Ferguson, Cowboys fans too. They had some really compelling numbers for tight ends. And so look at all the teams, the final four, right, of the playoff teams last year. They were basically the top four tight ends in the league. It was Kittle, who had 1,000 yards last year, as we learned from our man Patrick. Travis Kelce, who's known as probably the greatest tight end of all time. You had the Detroit Lions with the young buck, Sam Laporta. All right. And then you had Mark Andrews.
And Likely, who played really, really well last year as well.
Yes, you're right. I forgot they had two. You're right. Good point. Because Andrews was hurt. He was hurt like for
a lot of the season.
Month, like a month and a half, maybe 6 weeks or something. So you're right. So they had multiple tight ends. But tight end position is making a huge comeback, guys. How about this? Tight ends had the largest share of the league's targets since 2015. And they had the largest share of league receptions since 2012. Largest share of receiving yardage since 2013. And tight ends matched their most receptions per game in a season since 2010. They had their fewest touchdowns per game since 2008. So they're being used more probably in between the 20s. And they had the lowest share of receiving touchdowns since 2018. So it seems like in the red zone, they're not using them as much, but they'd be using them, the tight ends, in between the 20s more. So, yeah, the tight end, and I think it's the tight end, and Brock Bowers. Think about that. You just added another freak of nature at the tight end position. And last season, you had 5 different tight ends with a target share of 20% or more. You had 4 in 2022. You had just 2 in 2021. That number is going to continue to go up. Because you got, and honestly, JT Sanders is about to join. I think he's going to end up starting for the Panthers by the end of the season or next season. I really truly believe that. So basically, tight ends are being used more, and their targets are being concentrated. The volume is going up, and they're being concentrated on, kind of in between the 20s, I think, with some of these young elite tight ends. So there's something happening. There's a renaissance happening at this specific position in the NFL, at the tight end position. And I think ultimately running back we talked about the devalue in the running back position, but running back is going through a transformation. Look at the running backs now that they're starting to covet. You got to be a Jahmyr Gibbs, a Bijan Robinson, got to be a guy that essentially I can use in the passing game. Because I think what ultimately is, as Sark talks about with running backs, they are the most underutilized position in the passing game. So he loves using his running backs in the passing game. But ultimately, it's about matchups. And your running backs, defenses are built and constructed to try to get their worst coverage defenders on running backs. He's a linebacker, put him on a running back. It's not they'll put a defensive end on him. Put a defensive end on him. It's a flat route for a running back. The D end can cover him. Okay. All right, let's try that with Jahmyr Gibbs. Let's try that with a Bijan Robinson. Not going to work out really well for you. So just another way to stress the defense. And I think that's why, and even the Texans, watch how they use Joe Mixon. It's going to be a lot in the passing game. And I think so teams, that's Sark's philosophy, and that's a pro-style philosophy. I think also the same thing's applying to tight ends now. And it's like, you better start devoting a slot corner to cover that tight end or your best coverage safety. If you end up putting your worst coverage safety on that tight end or a linebacker or that can't cover on that tight end, they're going to eat them up all day, every day. Eat them alive. And the NFL is playing more zone coverage than they have in the past. So they're playing less man, playing more zone coverage than they have in the past. And zone coverages are built to keep kind of a canopy over the defense and to defend the wide receivers first. Right? All of my pre-snap reads and my progression as a defender, as a defensive back, it's always wide receivers. I never, as a defensive back, very rarely, unless it's a nub tight inside, formation and boundary where I don't travel. There are some circumstances where my keys and my progression are the tight end or the running back. It can be. Empty formation, stuff like that. But usually it's wide receivers out of your 11 personnel, 3 wide receiver formations. And I think ultimately when you start looking at it, that's another way you're going to end up with a subpar, average to below average coverage defender on a tight end. It's just about matchups. Tight ends are becoming more and more adept at being pass catchers and pass receivers and elite route runners. And that's why now you want versatility from your defenders, because I got to cover running backs now and tight ends, and they're not built like they used to be. Now these guys are built and with, the really kind of pad the passing game in their DNA already. Those old school tight ends were different, man. Those guys were run blocking tight ends who occasionally went out and were weapons in the passing game. Now you want tight ends that are just straight up mismatches and matchup nightmares in the passing game. So I think that's why you're starting to see the renaissance at tight ends, just the passing game overall. And pretty soon they're going to be forcing teams to go. This is why Dan Quinn plays a lot of dime and plays a lot of nickel, because it was a modern defense, right? Built to deal with the modern challenges that an offense presents to you. And one of the modern challenges is these really evolved tight ends and pass catching running backs. And that's why he's like, well, I got a J-Run Curse out there, so I'm cool. I got 3 safeties out there, so I'm fine with you having a Jahmyr Gibbs out there. But then it leaves you vulnerable in other places. You're never going to be right as a DC. You're always going to be wrong. So, because there's going to be a team that finds a great way to match up with you. So, and no defense has such a well-rounded defense with defenders that you can solve every problem. You're going to have a problem that's going to be presented to you. And just kind of naturally with how your defense is built and how it's constructed. All right, there you go. Good NFL discussion. We come back. We'll play Who Said That. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the context clues, familiarity of the voice, or, hopefully you can just recall and identify who said that. We'll get into that when we come back right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the Horn. Oh yeah, welcome back to the Rodcast, Top of the Charts Tuesday. Oh man, little Will Smith for you. What's this? Is this the Wild Wild West? What is
Yeah.
this? Wild
which
West,
is
yeah.
always great because Stevie Wonder that they're sampling. So it's like if
Oh yeah,
you're doing Stevie Wonder and one of the just an amazing song and I wish, then it just
Yeah.
helps out a lot.
No, I said with the Will Smith soundtrack songs, they do jam. I mean, I can't even hate them. They do jam. He's got a few of these, like 3. I think he made one for Men in Black. He made one.
Yeah.
I think he's got like 3 or 4 of those. He does a good job. This is back when you actually still made songs specifically about the plot and title of the movie.
Yes.
Right.
So
Yeah, we're done with that time. Yes, you actually made a song and it was about the plot of it. I would love to be in those meetings. I'm like, all right, Will, here's the plot of the movie. Can you make us a song? I think that's how those meetings had to go. Like,
well,
hey,
I'm
can
sure
you
the
make a song
meetings
about the
went
movie?
as we're negotiating the contract. So
Yeah.
not only are you going to star in this movie, but we're going to pay you to also do a song for it.
Oh man!
And so you'll get money from that in the back end on both. And
yeah, and then when Will loved it, like I said, he did it multiple times. It was kind of a package deal with him.
Yeah,
he did a good job with it. He did a good job. I'm not gonna lie, he's perfect for that because Will never ventured into the gangster rap stuff. He stayed PG-13. That's what led to him being the first rapper to cross over into the major sitcoms and stuff like that. So Will did good for himself, and then ended up putting the most gangster move and slapping Chris Rock on live television because he dissed his, which we learn now, estranged wife. With they have
I wouldn't say it's the most gangster
open
move.
relationship.
Yeah, I wouldn't say most gangster.
His most gangster move. You're right. So I said his most gangster move that he's done.
Yeah,
slapping Chris Rock. Yeah, and then won the Oscar. We forget that he won. Didn't he win the Oscar?
Yes. Yeah, because he
That
had to
was
come back out
amazing.
and give a speech after that.
It's crazy. We live in a society where truly, man, truth is stranger than fiction. Y'all know it is now. We have reached that point.
What if he still
fiction's got nothing on what's happening right now in our world?
No, he still should have come out and slapped both the presenters and just slapped everybody. What y'all gonna do?
Just slap. Yeah, just like that's this thing now. It's like, you better watch out, man. Will might slap you. All right, there you go. Thanks to Patrick for the topic for the big fat poll today, as well as the musically themed day of the week. Go check it out. It's at the Horn ATX on X. And the question is simply, which quarterback 30 or above is most likely to win a Super Bowl next? He put Jared Goff on it, even though Jared Goff is 29, turns 30 in October during the season. And Jared Goff, thank God he's on there because he's running away with this thing. 58% of you who voted said Jared Goff most likely out of this group, the 30 and older group of quarterbacks in the NFL to win a Super Bowl first. Yeah, he was close. We're not winning one. They were close to he's getting a one. Hell, you was 17-point lead in the NFC title game on the 49ers. Man, you should have closed that out. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, right? Shoulda, woulda, coulda. All right, let's we should hit the last segment of the show here. Time for Who Said That? That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio, sometimes from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world. And based on the context clues and based on the familiarity of the voice, hopefully you can identify who said that.
And then Coach Elko said, I'll be at Duke longer than Mac will be at Carolina. And, well, I called him when he went out to A&M and said, okay, you lied. He said, well, I didn't think I was going to. I said, yeah, I got it. I hear all that.
Mac giving people a hard time, man. That was Coach Mac Brown. He's a little friendly trash talk to Mike Elko. But yeah, Mac said right now on the recruiting trail, everybody keeps talking about his age because he turned 73, I believe. He's going to turn 73. And basically the negative recruiting pitching as Mac is, he won't be there to watch your son graduate. He's going to retire.
Yeah, which he responded with, everybody says that 6 of them have already been fired.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, it's essentially like, yeah, these guys already been fired. Don't listen to these fools. Yes, I don't know how Mac answers that when a mom asks him, are you going to be here for my son when he graduates?
He says, did you see how long I stayed in Texas? I ain't going nowhere.
He's like,
those guys wanted me gone 5 years before I was going. Come on.
That's true. Mac's a parade or pine box kind of guy.
Yes.
And, if he is, give me the parade or give me the pine box.
I'll tell you what. Either we're winning a title or I'm retiring or I'm dying. One or the other.
I'm dying. Yeah, in this spot right here. We love Mac. All right. Thank you, Patrick. Great job today, as always. Thank you guys out there for listening. Remember, the revolution will not be televised, but of course, we'll be talking about it right here on the Rodcast. Join us tomorrow, same time, same channel. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. Until next time, hook 'em and peace.